fully mastered their strength? Yang Kai frowned. Having a complete understanding of the mysteries of the strength one uses, allowing them to display its full potential and might. Bayer explained with a smile. Fair enough. Yang Kai was a bit confused. Although Guizu's previous words had made him very excited and he secretly felt that a whole new world of possibilities had opened in front of him, it may have also just been Guizu speaking randomly. He couldn't offer Yang Kai any kind of advice or guidance on the matter. Your slave has never met such an astonishing genius, but I have witnessed two people who cultivate opposite attribute strengths fight side by side. Those two forces should have interfered with one another, but instead they mutually enhanced each other. Baya added, these types of cultivators are actually not that rare. I believe Master has also encountered some before. Yang Kai's eyes lit up as he turned to stare at Baya, his burning gaze making it seem as if he wanted to swallow her whole. Baya wore a forced smile and shyly whispered, what does Master want? Staring at your slave so? Yang Kai didn't answer as 1,000 different thoughts flashed across his mind. It was as if he had found a light in the darkness. Baya's unintentional words had made Yang Kai remember a vital point. It was indeed extremely difficult or even impossible for two opposing forces to fuse together. However, two people who cultivated different attribute forces could work side by side while complementing one another. Such things often happened. This was also the case when him and Su Yan. Su Yan controlled frigid cold while he used blazing heat. The two of them shouldn't be able to cooperate at all. But when they fought side by side, each of them would obtain a massive boost in strength. And this was all because of the existence of the yin-yang joyous unification art. The two of them were dual cultivators, the primary forces in each of their bodies blending with one another before returning back to themselves in an endless cycle. Su Yan's icy strength and his true yang strength would purify and sublimate one another, increasing their density and intensity. Yin-yang joyous unification art. Yang Kai's expression changed, sinking into an even deeper state of contemplation. Yang Kai suddenly recalled the scene of him and Su Yan dual cultivating. He entered a state of epiphany, as if Su Yan was right in front of himself, the two of them achieving a union of heart and soul, unable to extricate themselves. In the midst of his reflection, Yang Kai felt like a barrier of fog around him lifted, allowing him to see further into this unknown realm. His body shook greatly and a profound light overflowed from his eyes. At this moment, he had thought of a possibility. Ice and fire were able to fuse because they flowed together in a never-ending cycle, not restraining one another, but promoting and enhancing each other's strength. Ice and fire were capable of this, so his true yang Saint Qi and evil power should be able to as well. Strictly speaking, the evil power contained inside his unyielding golden skeleton was a type of cold attribute strength, just different from Su Yan's ice attribute strength. It was a type of cold that could cause one's mind and soul to feel as if they had been dropped into the deepest levels of purgatory. An invisible wave of force exploded from Yang Kai's body in an instant, an alternating hot and cold aura surrounded by Ye, causing her to feel a sweltering heat difficult to bear, then a frigid chill like the coldest of winters in rapid succession. Are you all right? She called out in alarm, immediately discovering that Yang Kai's situation was unusual, frightening her greatly. During this time, she had done her very best to please Yang Kai in order to make him feel some sympathy, all so she could obtain his asylum. If Yang Kai had any kind of accident, all her efforts would be wasted. Baya was naturally nervous. Get back! From somewhere unseen, Guizu sternly shouted, and immediately, Baya found herself held by an invisible force and thrown out of the stone chamber. A breeze brushed past her face in the next instant, and Baya was amazed to discover that Guizu was now standing beside her. His gloomy eyes filled with profound light as he stared towards Yang Kai, who was sitting in the stone room in front of him. Senior, what happened to him? Baya summoned her courage and asked. I'm not sure, but he seems to have had some kind of harvest. Guizu frowned. What were you talking to him about just now? Baya quickly explained everything that just transpired. Guizu listened to her explanation as his expression fluctuated, soon grinning strangely. This boy, just because of a few words from this old master, was actually able to achieve such a result? I really don't know if it's a blessing or a calamity. Senior, is he in danger? Baya covered her mouth in fear. He's trying to fuse together two opposite attribute forces. What do you think? Guizhou grinned. It's already impressive he wasn't killed on the spot. His courage is certainly not small. Senior, can't you stop him? Baya exclaimed and hurriedly said, don't you need him to help find a way to escape this place? If he dies, he dies. Besides, this little boy isn't sincerely trying to help this old master. Even if he does find a way to escape, I'm afraid the first thing he'll do is look for a way to leave this old master behind. Heh! If he dies, this old master just needs to collect his remnant soul and search his memories. Baya suddenly understood that it was useless. Regardless of what she said now, Guizhou would not change his stance of non-interference. Little girl, it's not like you really care about his safety. Why act so nervous? Guizhou looked at Baya and snickered. Baya wore a forced smile. Senior must be joking. I really don't want him to die now. What happened? Xintu shouted and quickly appeared, falling into a state of shock the moment he arrived at the stone chamber's door and hurriedly calling out, Brother Yang, what's happening? Why is his appearance so strange? As soon as he asked this, though, Guizhou's brow furrowed and he shouted, Fall back! Saying so, he disappeared. Seeing the seriousness with which Guizhou was acting, how could Baya and Xintu dare to remain? Using their movement skills, they quickly rushed out. Just as the two of them appeared outside, two opposing forces suddenly broke out from the mountain. One was burning hot, the other was cold and malevolent. Both of these forces were incredibly powerful and had flooded the entire stone tunnel network before spreading out beyond the confines of the mountain peak. Lu Guichun, who had been staying nearby, turned his head and stared in shock towards the mountain. Yushi, who was talking with Hizeo and He Miao, also turned to face the same direction, her pretty face filling with surprise. The entire mountain was now engulfed in a bizarre phenomenon, seemingly having been divided into two distinct zones. The left half of the mountain was filled with burning hot yang attribute strength, radiating bright golden light, while the right half was bathed in a jet-black evil energy that was filled with a bloodthirsty and cruel aura. These two forces were polar opposites and were visibly clashing against one another, causing the entire mountain to tremble, as if it would collapse at any moment. What's going on? Lu Guichun muttered as he rapidly withdrew. At the same time, everyone else around the mountain fell back more than a dozen kilometers before coming to a stop. This is that junior's aura. What is he doing? Yushi narrowed her eyes and asked Hizeo and He Miao. I don't know. When we came out, he didn't seem to be doing anything in particular. He Miao shook her head. Baya of Purple Star should know something. Hizeo turned her eyes to the side where both Baya and Xintu were staring towards the mountain with nervous looks. Lu Guichun also noticed this point and immediately asked them about it. Listening to their conversation, Yushi quickly understood the truth of the matter. A strange look appeared on her pretty face and soon a burst of laughter escaped from her lips. That junior is dead for sure this time. I don't even need to take action. Humph, just an overconfident brat. A mere first-order saint daring to try such a stunt. It really makes one wonder how he lived this long. Master, is Yang Kai in danger? His life is hanging by a single thread, Yushi said with a happy look upon her face. Master, please save him. I know you're annoyed that he acted disrespectfully towards you, but you don't really wish to see him die, right? Hizeo begged. Naturally, I want him to die. The sooner the better. Yushi ground her teeth. And besides, this kind of thing can't be interfered with by others. Haven't you seen that senior Guizhou standing back? Hizeo and He Miao looked up and indeed saw Guizhou's just standing in the sky, observing. If anyone tries to forcefully stop him, he will die without a doubt. Yushi frowned and quickly said, Now, whether he lives or dies, is all up to him. After saying this, Yushi suddenly noticed that Hizeo and He Miao were staring at her strangely, causing her to snort and turn her pretty face away. Hizeo giggled. Master's really had a change of heart. You don't seem to be bearing much of a grudge anymore. Little girl, don't make fun of your master, Yushi said bitterly. If he doesn't die this time, later you must keep your distance from him at least 10 meters. Yes, he Zhao and he Miao nodded. Senior, can't you try to find some way to help him? Shintu stood at the foot of the mountain and yelled towards Guizhu. Guizhu grinned. There's nothing this old master can do. After this, he will either die or soar to untold heights. No matter which end it is though, this old master is very much looking forward to it. So even if this old master had a way to, he wouldn't stop this. He was truly quite interested in Yang Kai now. Although he had been shocked when he learned that Yang Kai was proficient in the Tao of space, and had been paying more attention to Yang Kai's movements these past few days, it wasn't until this moment that he discovered he had somewhat underestimated Yang Kai. With only a few words from him, this boy had been able to rapidly comprehend the deeper mysteries of his own strength. This wasn't something an ordinary cultivator could achieve. Guizhu wanted to see if Yang Kai could succeed, and if he did, what this new fusion of these two opposite attribute strengths would be like and how much his strength would improve. If he didn't die, his future would certainly be incredibly bright, even possibly becoming the greatest genius in the entire star field. At the foot of the mountain, everyone stood and stared towards the mountain peak covered in these two opposite forces as they clashed against one another. Some people hoped Yang Kai would quickly die, some hoped he would survive, and some were completely indifferent, only taking this as an interesting show to watch. Everyone had a different mood and watched with different expressions upon their face. At the foot of the mountain, everyone waited and watched, each of them holding their own different thoughts. Inside the belly of the mountain, Yang Kai felt his own power explode outward and his expression became extremely ugly. The maximum amount of power a cultivator could have was dictated largely by their realm. A transcendent would have the limits of the transcendent realm, while a saint would be limited to the power of a saint realm. However, this limit didn't apply to Yang Kai because his secret art was incredibly special. While cultivating the true Yang secret art, once the Yang attribute energy within his body reached a certain level of saturation, it would condense into a drop of Yang liquid that he could store in his dantian that could be later called upon when needed. The unyielding golden skeleton also had the unique ability to accommodate an unimaginably large amount of energy. These two power storages inside Yang Kai's body couldn't be compared with that of an ordinary cultivator. It could almost be said that there was no limit to the amount of qi he could store. But now, Yang Kai had forced open both of these storages. The vast stores of evil energy inside the unyielding golden skeleton had all of a sudden erupted out, and in order to balance its influence on his body and not become corrupted by its malevolent intent, Yang Kai had to burst drop after drop of Yang liquid. The evil energy and Yang Yuan Qi violently burst forth like water from a broken dam, quickly engulfing the entire mountain around Yang Kai. The enormity of this eruption even caused Yang Kai some fear, as this amount of energy was over 100, possibly over 1,000 times what his physical body could withstand. Yang Kai convulsed and the blood in his veins flowed rapidly. The massive eruption of force had caused his skin to crack open and golden blood to flow out. His intrepid physique healing itself, only for new wounds to be reopened, this process repeating in a seemingly endless cycle. Yang Kai's mood, however, was as stable as stone as he felt the two forces in his body, studying the way they flow, comprehending the laws governing them, deepening his understanding of their true natures. Time passed slowly, and more evil energy and Yang Yuan Qi dissipated in their fierce confrontation. As these forces melted away, Yang Kai became more and more aware of their natures. His divine sense was fully spread out, examining every detail of the changes he was undergoing. Yang Kai had never imagined that under such distressing circumstances, he would be able to witness such astonishing transformations in his own strength. These two strengths seemed to possess a life of their own and were constantly whispering their secrets into Yang Kai's ears. It was as if he was watching an endless ebb and flow filled with profound mysteries. Yang Kai's eyes grew brighter and brighter, his confidence growing stronger with each passing moment. He didn't pay any attention to the collision of his own strength, and instead immersed himself completely in this ethereal state, leaving himself in the middle of the two forces' confrontation, focusing his attention on the changes in the evil energy and Yang Yuan Qi. It was as if he was an outsider, observing everything silently from the sidelines. After a long time, he suddenly felt something marvelous. At that moment, it was as if he had fully comprehended the nature and meaning of his own strength. His expression trembling, Yang Kai began circulating his yin-yang joyous unification art, using it as a type of guide for his yang yuan qi and evil energy that had escaped his body to return to him once more. Hundreds of millions of his pores opened and Yang Kai's body became like a bottomless pit, easily swallowing up the two forces which had previously burst out. As these two forces returned to his body, they followed the path Yang Kai guided them on, no longer clashing with one another, but instead beginning to fuse together, resulting in miraculous changes. Feeling these incredible changes, Yang Kai's face filled with joy and he put forth even more effort to merge his strength together. At the foot of the mountain, everyone was whispering amongst themselves, discussing whether Yang Kai's end would be life or death, when suddenly, He Miao exclaimed, "Something's happening." Even without her reminder, everyone present was aware that the atmosphere had changed, causing all of them to turn their eyes towards the mountain peak. When the scene before them appeared in their eyes, everyone was dumbfounded. Prior to this, the whole mountain had been divided into two zones, one filled with golden light and blistering heat, the other blanketed in profound darkness and malevolent chill. But now, everyone could faintly feel that these two forces were slowly blending together, as if they were being attracted to one another, each of them no longer seeking to annihilate the other. He actually succeeded? Guizhu's expression became strange as he released his divine sense towards the mountain, a moment later curling his lips into a sharp grin as he snorted lightly. This little brat. Obviously, Yang Kai had fully comprehended the nature of his own strength and found the correct method forward. As long as this process continued, he would be able to turn the casually made joke of Guizhu into reality and perfectly fuse together two opposite attribute forces. Guizhu found that even now he had still been underestimating Yang Kai's ability, a hint of admiration and envy appearing in his gaze. Before, he had only made an irresponsible comment to Yang Kai about this possibility, figuring he could work towards this direction in the future, possibly spending the next several hundred years to accomplish it. The premise being he could live that long, of course. Guizhu had never thought Yang Kai would be able to achieve this astonishing feat so quickly. This kind of transformation couldn't be achieved in one shot. It was likely this boy's understanding of his own strength had reached a great height beforehand, and Guizhu's joke had simply served as the impetus to awaken him to this possibility. Even if Guizhu had not said anything to him, as long as he had the right opportunity in the future, Yang Kai would likely have been able to achieve this on his own. Realizing this, Guizhu didn't know whether to laugh or cry. He had inadvertently helped Yang Kai achieve a massive growth in strength. "Senior, is Yang Kai all right?" Shintu raised his head to the sky and asked. "How would this old master know?" "Humph." Guizhu grumbled unhappily, waving his sleeve before disappearing. "That's good?" Shintu took note of the meaning behind these words and smiled happily, his heart finally relaxing. A short time later, the scenery around the mountain underwent a dramatic change. The golden light and pitch-black darkness merged together into one whole, making it look like the entire peak was on fire. But this fire was actually jet black, a demonic flame. This bizarre demonic flame seemed capable of incinerating everything in the world, inherently irresistible. Just looking at it made one feel uncomfortable, as if their soul was being drawn in by this demonic flame and was suffering from an infernal burning, making it forever impossible for them to reincarnate. Not only did it contain the aura of true Yang Yuan Qi, resistant to all evil and malevolence, it was also filled with a bloodthirsty and brutal aura that stimulated the innermost evils one hid in the depths of their heart. These contradictory auras made it nearly impossible for anyone to think of a way to defend themselves against it. Everyone quickly put aside their gaze, not daring to pry into this demonic flame's mysteries. "It looks like he really has soared into the sky." Baiya's eyes flashed with a strange light, secretly feeling she should change her attitude towards Yang Kai once more and treat him with full devotion and sincerity. Before now, she had compromised for her immediate benefit, not even hesitating to treat herself as a slave to attend to Yang Kai, all because she was afraid he would try to make trouble for her. It was only because of this point that she had humiliated herself so. She had never felt that there was anything good about Yang Kai. Rather, she felt that Yang Kai could only be unscrupulous on this continent because of Guizhu's favor, and that without it, he was nothing. This kind of bullying the weak by taking advantage of the strong was quite repugnant to her. Therefore, although she had truly done her best to serve him during this time, and had fulfilled every request Yang Kai made of her, she had never once respected him and instead had been looking down on him. But now she didn't dare have such thoughts. The young man in front of her now really had his own unique strength, a great potential that would sooner or later have all the big forces in the star field scrambling to win him over. Just give him enough time, and he would surely become an astonishing master. He would hold a high post and become an overlord who ruled over a vast territory. Maintaining a good relationship was a wise course of action. Baiya's beautiful eyes took on a dazzling glow as her pretty face blossomed radiantly. Secretly glancing over towards them, she found that Lu Guichen and Yu Shi also had dignified expressions now, none of their previous contempt for Yang Kai apparent on their faces. She knew that these two people had finally realized the potential of Yang Kai and were now reconsidering how to approach him. Disdainfully curling her lips, Baiya couldn't help feeling a subtle sense of superiority, because she had the advantage of distance over these two. She was the one closest to Yang Kai right now as his servant. This sense of superiority made her feel both shame and inexplicable excitement. Licking her thin red lips, she felt a heat rise in her tender body. Realizing there wasn't any risk to Yang Kai's life, Shin Tu immediately stopped paying attention to the movements around the mountain and went back to his own business. Over on the Sword Union side, the remaining 5 cultivators all gathered together. Yushi frowned deeply and tried to say something, pausing awkwardly for a moment before coughing. Ignore your master's previous words. From now on, you two sisters should stick close to him. And if he is willing to join Sword Union, it would be best. If not though, don't push the matter. He Zhao and He Miao exchanged a bright-eyed glance before quickly nodding. Yes, master. He Miao continued. Actually, he's not so bad. It's just that he spends a lot of time with that slut Baiya. It's simply shameful. Yushi stared at her and quickly followed up. Making friends with him is all right, but make sure to keep a safe distance so he doesn't take advantage of you. And I know, master. He Miao nodded repeatedly. Inside the belly of the mountain, within his stone room, Yang Kai continued to circulate the joyous unification art, guiding the two forces to fuse together. Initially, the process was not very smooth, and some conflicts arose between the two forces as they fused together inside his body, but no major harm was done. As time passed, Yang Kai found that everything became easier, and even the minor obstructions had disappeared. The evil energy from his unyielding golden skeleton, and the energy contained in the yang liquid in his dantian, with the exception of the part which had mutually destroyed at the beginning, all returned without any waste. Yang Kai clearly felt that he was quickly becoming more powerful. The power now contained within his body was incomparable to before, making him ecstatic. What Guizhu had said was right. After the two forces fused together, his own strength had really undergone an earth-shaking change, one he could clearly feel and perceive. Having tasted the sweet benefits of this fusion, Yang Kai began circulating his joyous unification art even more rapidly. The entire mountain suddenly became like an invisible vortex, swirling rapidly, pulling a vast amount of world energy towards it. Under the influence of this vortex, the stream of spirit liquid that ran through the stone chambers vaporized into the purest of energy and poured into Yang Kai's body where it was completely absorbed. The mountain where Guizhu originally lived was lush and verdant, filled with beautiful scenery. But now, the whole mountain seemed like it had been incinerated. The forest burned to the ground and the earth covered in ash, retaining none of its previous splendor. Even the giant spirit array which had been arranged inside it to gather the surrounding world energy aura seemed to have been destroyed. Inside the mountain, the stream of spirit liquid that had flown for so long had evaporated and disappeared. In one of the stone rooms, an invisible vortex continued drawing in massive quantities of world energy and absorbing it. Guizhu's figure appeared leisurely and stood in front of Yang Kai, frowning at him while remaining motionless. Yang Kai didn't seem to notice him, and only after a long time did he let out a soft breath and stopped circulating his secret art. Examining himself in silence, Yang Kai's face filled with excitement. The yang liquid in his dantian and the evil energy in his unyielding golden skeleton had both disappeared and were replaced with his newly fused strength that contained characteristics of both, but with far greater power and lethality. A part of this new strength flowed through his meridians, constantly moisturizing every bit of his physique while the bulk of it was stored inside his unyielding golden skeleton. Yang Kai felt that inside and out, he had been reborn, his body now filled with unparalleled explosive power. What was certain was that his strength had undergone an earth-shaking enhancement. He even felt that he could fight on par with a Saint King Realm Master. His Cultivation realm had also increased, reaching the second-order saint level without any hindrance. Yang Kai hadn't even realized when he had broken through, as his entire consciousness had been immersed in the process of fusing his two forces together. This was a pleasant surprise that only added to his happiness. With a thought, Yang Kai activated his demon god transformation. The demon crests that none could see appeared beneath Yang Kai's skin and melded into his physique, and a moment later, his vitality, as well as the strength of his flesh, rose rapidly. It seemed that he could still use the demon god transformation, causing Yang Kai to put down one of his worries. This was what he expected, though, as the strength flowing through him now had the characteristics of both his yang qi and evil energy. Good, you're very good. Guizu's voice suddenly came from in front, offering sincere praise. Yang Kai opened his eyes and dismissed his demon god transformation, quickly standing up and cupping his fists. Senior, many thanks for your valuable guidance. Guizu wore a strained look and coldly snorted. This old master didn't teach you anything. Don't offer your thanks. Yang Kai smiled and said, Senior may have just been speaking casually, but without those few words, Junior does not know when he might have achieved this step. It may have been many years, or possibly even longer, so regardless of Senior's intentions, I must offer my thanks. Do whatever you want. Guizu waved his hand impatiently, seemingly unwilling to have any kind of friendly relations with Yang Kai, solemnly saying, This old master did not disturb you as you sat in retreat for an entire month, giving you the time you required to improve your strength. Now that you've succeeded, shouldn't you fulfill your part of our agreement? He stared at Yang Kai coldly, seeming a little unhappy because he had been forced to wait so long. Yang Kai quickly nodded. Junior can begin immediately, but before that, I'd like to take a look at that space array. Go ahead. As long as you can find a way to leave this place, this old master doesn't care where you go. But remember, if you can't find a way out of this cage, this old master will extract your soul and torture it forever. Disappointing this old master will guarantee you the most miserable of ends. As he issued this threat, he released a wisp of pitch-black energy that flew into Yang Kai's body, disappearing in a flash. This dark energy shuttled through Yang Kai's body before finally arriving at his right arm and transforming into an eerie mark. This mark contained a threat of Guizu's divine sense, allowing him to constantly monitor Yang Kai's every move. Yang Kai just smiled wryly and shook his head before walking out. A short time later, he left the mountain and came out to the flat area where the space array had been set up. This space array had been idle since the last time Guizu used it, and the numerous saint crystals that were scattered about it were now quite dim, clearly having been almost completely drained of energy. The door, which had been forged from broken starship debris and covered in a thin layer of space spirit crystal, still stood where it had originally been. Yang Kai had secretly observed this space array more than once in an attempt to gain some inspiration and enhance his own understanding of the Tao of space. It was only now that he was able to investigate it unscrupulously, though, that he discovered that even though Guizu's aptitude in the Tao of space was terrible, after 1,000 years of research, he did have some accomplishments. He had been able to come up with the idea of using space spirit crystal as the key to opening and stabilizing a void corridor. Unfortunately, the door used to form the void corridor was made from broken scraps from a Saint King grade starship, which was somewhat insufficient. The space spirit crystal that covered the door frame was also too thin. These two factors were the main cause of the instability of the void corridor which was formed. If he had enough materials, Guizhou might very well have been able to arrange a stable space array. As for where that space array would transmit a person who entered it, that was still unknown. Yang Kai observed this space array while absorbing Guizhou's insights into the Tao of space, enhancing his own comprehension of its mysteries. After a while, several sets of footsteps suddenly sounded behind him. Yang Kai lifted his head and turned around to discover that everyone who was still alive on this continent, with the exception of Guizhou of course, had come over. They seemed to have realized Yang Kai had exited his retreat and had come to see him. Master. Baya, not caring about the scornful eyes which stared at her, shouted intimately before walking up to Yang Kai with a smile, sincerely saying, "Congratulations on your great increase in strength, Master." This time, when she shouted Master to Yang Kai, she really meant it, not like before where it was mere flattery and platitudes. Her smile much more dazzling than before. Yang Kai gently nodded. "Brother, it's good that you're all right. In the future, you should really refrain from acting so recklessly." Shin Tu laughed happily, but in the depths of his eyes, a hint of doubt arose. He had never been clear about what Yang Kai's true strength was. Though back in the Purple Star starship, Yang Kai had suddenly and violently killed a third-order saint. That was partially due to catching the enemy off guard with a sneak attack, so it couldn't be used as an accurate assessment. Shin Tu had frequently speculated about the true depths of Yang Kai's strength. Before Yang Kai entered this latest retreat, he hadn't felt any pressure from Yang Kai, but every time he was with him, a voice in his heart would constantly sound. If he were to really fight with Yang Kai, the person who would die would undoubtedly be him. This was Shin Tu's intuition as a cultivator, so he had always felt that Yang Kai had hidden his own cultivation and strength. But now, meeting him again, Shin Tu found that the sense of danger he felt from Yang Kai had disappeared and the uneasy voice in his heart had gone silent. Shin Tu was greatly puzzled, not knowing what Yang Kai's retreat had been about. Had he succeeded or had he failed? However, his cultivation has improved a minor realm, a fact that was obvious to all. "I'll be careful later," Yang Kai chuckled. The He sisters also ran up to Yang Kai with smiling faces. Yushi naturally stood behind her two disciples, a cold look on her pretty face. Nearby, Lu Guichun squeezed out an ugly smile and nodded before reluctantly asking, "Little brother, there is one thing we have not understood. If it is convenient, could little brother enlighten us?" Yang Kai glanced at him and asked lightly, "What?" Lu Guichun looked around for a moment before calming his breathing and whispering, "You said that Senior Guizhou needed something from you? What exactly was it?" As soon as this statement came out, everyone looked towards Yang Kai with expectant gazes, clearly interested in his response. They really couldn't understand how Yang Kai, a trivial Saint Realm cultivator, could actually reach an agreement with a master like Guizhou. Given Guizhou's great strength, what could he possibly want from him? "You might as well ask Senior Guizhou. If he is willing to tell you, he'll tell you." Yang Kai smiled lightly. Lu Guichen's expression cramped and he immediately shut up. Whenever he saw Guizhou, his first thought would be to escape. How could he possibly ask him about this kind of thing? If doing so made the other party the slightest bit displeased, Lu Guichen's life would probably come to an abrupt end. "Little brat, if you keep wasting time with them, this old master will teach you a lesson." Guizhou's voice, filled with intolerance, suddenly sounded in Yang Kai's ear, causing his face to change greatly. Cupping his fists, Yang Kai hurriedly apologized. "Excuse me. Senior is urging me to continue my work. I cannot chat with you any longer." Saying so, Yang Kai summoned his star shuttle and disappeared in a blue streak of light. 10,000 kilometers away from the mountain peak, Yang Kai came to a stop. Only Guizhou knew that Yang Kai possessed the ability to tear space. This was one of Yang Kai's greatest cards, so he was naturally unwilling to expose it, at least not to people like Lu Guichun. Checking his surroundings, Yang Kai began circulating his strength, gathering it at his fingertips in the next moment and making a slicing motion. Immediately, the space in front of him was torn open and a portal to the cold, black void appeared, a strange strength leaking out from it. Yang Kai didn't rush into this tear though and instead stared at it fixedly. In the past, when he had torn space, The crack he had formed seemed as if it was cut by a sword, its edges smooth and flat. But now, the edges of this tear were actually lined by a layer of black demonic flame that simultaneously emitted a hot and cold aura, making it impossible to understand. It seemed that it was even capable of burning space, making it so the torn crack could not instantly repair itself. Yang Kai's expression became stern. He hadn't expected that the demonic flame that had been born from the fusion of his two strengths would be so strange. It seems it was necessary for him to re-examine it carefully. After a brief pause, Yang Kai stepped into this tear, then used his divine sense to extinguish the demonic flames, allowing the crack in space to seal. Inside the turbulent flow of the void, Yang Kai didn't panic or rush, turning his eyes to the black mark Guizhu had left on his arm and chuckling. What Guizhu was thinking, Yang Kai knew better than anyone. The reason why Guizhu had not killed him, and instead was constantly urging him to look for a way to escape this place, was because he wanted to use this opportunity to enhance his own understanding of the Tao of space by monitoring Yang Kai's movements, spying on how he tore space and on the turbulent flow inside the void. In short, he wanted to steal this method for himself. For someone like Guizhu, he would never place all his hopes on a single person. He will always make an alternative to his own plans. Guizhu's little schemes Yang Kai was well aware of, but never brought to light. Because inside the turbulent void, everything from the outside world was cut off. Guizhu wouldn't even be able to sense where he was, much less what he was doing. So Yang Kai wasn't worried that his methods and abilities would be stolen by Guizhu. Although Guizhu had enlightened him and allowed his strength to greatly increase, earning him Yang Kai's gratitude, this and that were two different matters. Vigilance was always necessary, as Yang Kai could never feel truly at ease around Guizhu. For an old monster like Guizhu, going back on his word was something all too common. So Yang Kai not only had to search for a way out of this place, but also a way to ensure that after leaving, Guizhu wouldn't kill him. It was difficult. Yang Kai felt overwhelmed and was unable to think up any good way to accomplish these two goals simultaneously, only able to take one step at a time. After spending a short time inside the void, Yang Kai left. As soon as his figure reappeared, Guizhu's voice rang in his ear. "Little brat, what did you learn?" It was clear from this alone how anxious Guizhu was for news. Yang Kai smiled bitterly. "How could things be so easy? Senior should have some patience. I was only confirming whether or not the space around this place had stabilized." "And the result?" Guizhu continued to press. It has stabilized and should not interfere with my judgment any longer." "That's good. Senior, how far did I move this time?" 1,000 kilometers or so. Guizhu coldly snorted. "Your ability compared to last time has improved significantly. It seems your strength has grown quite a bit." Yang Kai couldn't help smiling upon hearing this. In the past, whenever he tore space, he could move at most a few hundred kilometers, but now that distance had increased to over 1,000 kilometers. This was a massive improvement. "Don't think you can play any tricks in front of me. You and I know that you can't escape from this old master's palm. So work hard, and as long as we can leave this place, this old master promises not to hurt you. Junior understands?" Yang Kai gently nodded. "Senior, if there is nothing else, I'd like to continue studying the problem." "Go on." Yang Kai once again tore space and stepped into the turbulent flow of the void, searching for the correct way out of this strange place. Although Yang Kai's strength had improved greatly over the past few years, standing in the void, he suddenly realized that his understanding of the Tao of space was still very shallow. Although it was far better than Guizhu's, at his current level of comprehension, it was obviously not enough for him to find a way out from this floating continent. And so, as he had done many years ago, Yang Kai submerged himself in the void in order to study its mysteries and improve his comprehension of the Tao of space. He didn't explain this to Guizhu though, because Guizhu was very impatient and was hoping that Yang Kai would immediately be able to take him away from here. Time passed by and Yang Kai spent much of his time inside the void, studying its mysteries and complexities. Every day, he would return to the continent to make a progress report to Guizhu in order to appease his anxiety. Yang Kai had made remarkable progress and had gained much his understanding of the Tao of space becoming deeper and deeper. One day, Xianxia suddenly had an interesting idea and immediately left the void. He then released his divine sense and sent it into the void without his physical body, projecting it in all directions. If he wanted to leave this place, Xianxia would need to pass through the strange seven-colored sky. But Guizhou had said that this sky was formed by the chaotic interactions of the chaotic abyss various energy fields and spanned at least several thousand kilometers, possibly as much as 10,000 kilometers. Even with Xianxia's current means, he would need to accurately tear space a dozen times in order to cross this chaotic region of space. He didn't dare run tests with his own body, though, because a single mistake would cause him to become forever lost in that chaotic domain. However, he could replace himself with his divine sense, because even if threads of his divine sense became lost, it wouldn't cause him much trouble. At most, his soul would receive some minor damage, but with the six-colored soul-warming lotus, that damage could quickly be restored. Sending out a tidal wave of divine sense in all directions, Xianxia condensed his spiritual energy into invisible threads before attaching his own understanding of the Tao of space to them and then piercing them into the void. These threads of divine sense, coordinating with Xianxia's understanding of the Tao of space, began jumping across the entire continent, disappearing from one place and reappearing in another as they rapidly and repeatedly traversed the void. The range Xianxia's divine sense covered grew wider and wider. Inside the mountain peak, Guizhou, who had been monitoring Xianxia's movements, suddenly saw this scene and couldn't help muttering to himself, "Good. It seems that he's making some progress." He grinned widely, seeing Xianxia's efforts, as every step forward Xianxia made meant they were one step closer to leaving this cage. As such, Guizhou didn't bother disturbing Xianxia and simply let him experiment. After an hour, Xianxia showed a tired look. His divine sense had spread out too far now, far beyond what should be possible for his current realm. At this moment, Xianxia's divine sense covered almost half of the entire continent, a feat no second-order saint should be able to achieve. Even masters like Yuxi and Lu Guichun may not be able to cover such a vast area. Because Xianxia's divine sense was leaping across space, though, he didn't have to spread it step by step like ordinary cultivators. It was for this reason he could cover half of the continent. He then took back his divine sense and began to restore himself. However, at this moment, one of the threads of divine senses Xianxia had sent out noticed something unusual. Xianxia's brow rose as he first took back all his other divine sense threads, before focusing his attention on that particular place. After a moment, a look of shock appeared on Xianxia's face as he made an amazing discovery. Right in the very center of the continent, several thousand meters underground, there was a hidden mass of energy, one that was concealed so well that if Xianxia's divine sense thread hadn't inadvertently passed by it, he would never have even noticed its existence. Moreover, Xianxia discovered that there was a barrier around this mass of energy that not only firmly protected it, but also concealed its aura fluctuations from leaking out, making it nearly impossible to detect. The thread of divine sense Xianxia had accidentally made a jump inside this barrier and had only been there for a moment, but it had actually received an incredible strengthening, going from nearly dissipating to stronger than when he had released it. Xianxia was incredibly shocked and quickly realized that this mass of energy was something extraordinary. Recovering his composure, Xianxia left that thread of divine sense in place, so he could continue to determine the position of this strange energy mass before sitting down cross-legged and beginning to restore himself. He wanted to figure out what this mass of energy was. Could Guizhou, who had lived here for more than 2,000 years, know what it was? Soon, though, Xianxia faintly felt that Guizhou shouldn't know about the existence of this energy mass, because if he did know about it, he certainly would not have left it alone. Such a huge mass of energy would be enough to attract even an old monster like Guizhou. However, why didn't he know about it? Guizhou was an Origin King Realm Master and had spent innumerable years in this place. He should be well aware of everything minute detail here. "Senior," Xianxia called out with his divine sense. "What?" Guizhou immediately responded. "Junior wants to ask, after having lived on this continent for so long, have you discovered any special places?" "Special places?" Guizhou coldly snorted before angrily growling. "What are you talking about?" In addition to the rich aura and abundance of spirit herbs, this place is nothing more than a hateful prison, a cage that has trapped this old master for 2,000 years. This old master cannot wait to leave here. Why do you ask? What did you discover? Guizhou suddenly became alert. No, I simply wanted to learn more about this place. Perhaps it might help me find a way out. Yang Kai replied casually. Good. If you let this old master discover you've been up to some kind of scheme, don't blame me for not showing kindness. Guizhou snorted. After a moment of silence, he suddenly said, Do you want to use your special divine sense to find the star source of this damned place? Star source? What's that? Yang Kai asked curiously. You don't know? Guizhou was stunned. Yang Kai shook his head and smiled bitterly. Junior came from a lower world, one where no one has ever even visited the starry sky before so I know next to nothing about the star field. Barbarians! Guizhou snickered disdainfully. A star source is the heart of a star. Any cultivation star will have one. It can be thought of as the crystallized essence of a cultivation star. For example, if you think of a cultivator as a star, the star source would be equivalent to their dantian and knowledge sea. If any cultivator can engrave his soul brand on the star source of a cultivation star, he will become the master of that cultivation star and clearly understand everything about it. If he wishes, he can even cause natural disasters to happen at any place on that cultivation star. While he is alive, he can turn mountains into oceans and abysses into plains. Yang Kai couldn't help raising his brow and asking, Does that mean they could control that cultivation star? Exactly. Throughout the star field, every star master that controls the star source of their cultivation star can draw energy from that entire star to supplement their own. While standing on their own cultivation star, their strength will never dry up. It's literally inexhaustible. Little brat, do you now understand the power of a star master? I understand. Yang Kai turned pale. Then this place. Ha! It seems you really are a barbarian from some remote backwater. This strange continent isn't even a proper star, so how could it have a star source? This old master did a thorough search of this place 1,500 years ago. If I had found something, do you think I'd let it off? Yang Kai chuckled. It's a senior said. I was just asking casually, not looking for some star source. Before now, I'd never even heard of that. Good. Since you understand, then stop wasting time and get back to finding a way out of this place. Don't bother seeking for something that doesn't exist. It won't do you any good. Guizhou reprimanded before cutting off the conversation with Yang Kai. Yang Kai continued restoring himself while sinking into contemplation. As Guizhou said, this place wasn't anything like a complete star. It was just a strange floating continent. However, Yang Kai had seen an ancient tree-like star in the chaotic abyss, one that towered high into the sky and emitted a rich wood attribute aura. Considering that, it wasn't really much of a stretch to say that this continent was also a star. After all, its volume wasn't small, at least far beyond the scope of an asteroid. This unintentional discovery shook Yang Kai's mind greatly. Whether or not the strange mass of energy he found was this continent's star source, Yang Kai couldn't say for sure, and under Guizhou's strict surveillance, he didn't dare investigate it further right now and simply set the issue aside. However, that didn't stop Yang Kai from contemplating this situation. If it really was the star source of this continent, it must have been formed in the last 1,500 years, or it was capable of concealing itself from Guizhou's senses. Otherwise, there was no way Guizhou would be ignoring it. Yang Kai didn't retrieve his thread of divine sense, allowing it to remain where it was and receive nourishing from the strange energy mass. He intended to wait for a chance before sneaking over and examining it further. Leaving a thread of his divine sense there would allow Yang Kai to know the accurate location of this energy mass. Yang Kai made sure to act quietly so as not to draw too much attention from Guizhou. As time passed by, Yang Kai's comprehension of the Tao of space continued to increase. His divine sense was now able to spread out across half of the continent with ease and even jump across space to any particular point in this range to quietly investigate it. He then began repeatedly exploring the seven-colored sky, constantly experimenting by sending out countless threads of divine sense. losing many of them in the chaotic domain but finally gaining some confidence in his ability to leave this place. He maintained his composure though and didn't disclose this fact, instead continuing to explore and test his surroundings, striving for perfection. Every day, Yang Kai would make a progress report to Guizhu, but he didn't explain the entire truth, so Guizhu knew nothing about this. One day, when Yang Kai returned from exploring the seven-colored sky, he landed on the flat region of the central mountain and smelled a faint bloody scent in the air. His face changed slightly and he quickly spread out his divine sense, soon discovering that something wasn't right. Everyone who was still alive on this continent had gathered together, the atmosphere around them heavy as they were immersed in deep discussion. What happened? Yang Kai flew over and asked. Someone died, Shin-Tu said with an ugly expression. Yang Kai was stunned as he turned to see a cultivator lying on the ground, his vitality gone. It looked as if his body had suddenly been exposed to great pressure which caused it to burst open, making for a terrifying scene. What side did he belong to? Yang Kai asked. Ours, Zhao replied dispiritedly. He Miao and Yu Shi also wore sad and indignant expressions. Even Lu Guichun revealed a look of consternation. When they first arrived here, there were more than 100 cultivators from Purple Star and Sword Union, but after spending 1 year here, there were now less than a dozen of them left alive. There had been a brief reprieve for the last couple of months, but now someone else had died. No one even knew how he died. Who killed him? Yang Kai looked around and asked. No one dared to answer, all of them just wearing helpless looks. Yang Kai immediately understood. In this place, besides Guizhu, no one else had the guts to kill another. The old monster's mood must have been particularly bad. Otherwise, he wouldn't have killed a junior for no reason. Yang Kai, can you talk to Senior Guizhu? We swear we won't rebel against him. So can you ask him not to kill us again? Zhao bit her lip and pleaded to Yang Kai. This time, it had been a cultivator from Sword Union. The next time Guizhu decided to kill someone, who knew who would be targeted? Maybe it would be someone from their side. Maybe it would even be them. Besides Yang Kai, who was able to sit back and relax. Everyone else was now completely on edge. Also, once Guizhu killed everyone here and could no longer see any hope of leaving, he probably wouldn't let Yang Kai keep his life anymore. He would strip Yang Kai's soul from his body, then search his memories in order to obtain his insights into the Tao of space before seeking a way to leave himself. Yes, Yang Kai. Shin-Tu also spoke. Only you can talk to Senior Guizhu. I don't want to just inexplicably die. Everyone else stared at him eagerly, as if he was their last hope. Yang Kai gently nodded. I'll talk to him, but whether he'll listen to me, I can't guarantee. It's enough if you can put in a word with him. Shin-Tu smiled bitterly. Zhao, Miao, help me bury him, Yu Shi whispered. Yes. The only 3 remaining members of Sword Union collected their dead companion before walking off to find a place to bury him. Yang Kai flew to the mountain cave and after a few twists and turns, came to the stone room where Guizhu lived. Yang Kai knew that this stone room existed and that Guizhu lived here, but it was actually his first time coming to it. This stone room was very different from all the others and was filled with a thick, seemingly endless darkness. There was no trace of light anywhere and phantasmal wraiths swam about wherever one looked. Upon arriving outside the stone room, Yang Kai felt his whole body shiver as this gloomy scene appeared in front of him and a series of eerie shrieks drilled into his ears. From the darkness, a few specters with hideous green auras rushed out and brushed past his body, circling around him as they seemed to harass his mind, trying to pull him into the deepest depths of purgatory, never to return or reincarnate. Yang Kai went stiff and couldn't move. At that moment, a cluster of demonic flames suddenly erupted from his body, making it look like he was on fire. Having done this, he managed to break free from this illusion. In his ear, Yang Kai heard Guizhu's wicked cackle before he asked, "Little brat, what are you doing here?" Yang Kai frowned, allowing his demonic flame to continue burning, dispelling the influence of the various ghosts while looking for the right words, eventually deciding to get straight to the point. "Did Senior kill someone today?" Guizhu chuckled. "What's the big deal about killing someone?" You wouldn't be looking for this old master just because of such a minor issue, right? Everyone else outside is very nervous, afraid that they'll be the next to die, Yang Kai quickly said. And they should be anxious. Guizhu seemed to be very happy. This place has nothing to do for entertainment, so this old master decided to make his own fun. This old master most likes seeing people on edge and extremely uneasy. Just because you're bored you decided to kill someone? What of it? Guizhu coldly snorted, the dark stone room suddenly brightening and returning to its original state, revealing Guizhu's figure sitting at its center, his pair of gloomy eyes staring straight at Yang Kai while he maintained a malevolent grin. Did you come here to ask for leniency for them? Were you really such a person? Even if this old master killed all of them, I think you wouldn't care at all. Senior must be joking. Junior has several friends among those people. Naturally, I don't want to see you continue killing them. Friends. Guizhu was startled for a moment before bursting out into wicked laughter. You may be able to deceive others, but you can't lie to this old master. And you have some friendship with a couple of those people, but nothing to the extent that you would disobey me for them. If there's some advantage to it, you'll be good to them, but if you were to face a crisis, you wouldn't hesitate to abandon them. You're not so stupid to not understand what the consequences of disappointing me are. Yang Kai remained silent, allowing Guizhu to continue. What you're afraid of is that once this old master has killed all of those people, he will kill you too, Guizhu yelled. Yang Kai nodded calmly. Yes, Senior is well aware of Junior's concerns. Guizhu gently nodded. If you really have such concerns, you should work harder to find a way to leave this place as soon as possible, so we can all leave here before this old master kills all of them and kills you. I believe that you still aren't trying your best in this matter. Junior has already found some clues. Yang Kai frowned. Guizhu's body trembled as his eyes lit up, grinning as he said, Good, good. A clue is good. This piece of news makes this old master very happy. Happy enough to not become bored for a while. You should continue to work hard to not let this old master down. Junior will take his leave. Yang Kai cupped his fists and quickly withdrew. The moment he turned around, Yang Kai's expression became dignified. He understood that Guizhu had killed that person not because he was in a foul mood, but rather as a warning to him and to put pressure on him. Guizhu should be wary of him concealing something. Otherwise, he wouldn't have suddenly decided to kill someone. However, Guizhu didn't know what Yang Kai was hiding, and it wasn't convenient to simply come out and ask about it. So he had used this method instead. He was telling Yang Kai that his patience was limited and that if he couldn't satisfy him, his fate would be the same as the man who had just died. Yang Kai understood this, so he had spoken a few words to calm Guizhu down. However, this small bit of comfort wouldn't last for very long. The next time Guizhu became impatient, he may really kill him. Yang Kai's face was incredibly ugly, and he couldn't help feeling a deep sense of weakness. He had always planned to sneak away after finding a way out, not paying any attention to Guizhu, leaving him here to die in this cage. However, the difference in strength between them was far too vast, causing Yang Kai to constantly be on the defensive at every turn. He was aware that his thoughts were somewhat unrealistic. Even if he really found a way out of this place, before he could escape safely, he would certainly be stopped by Guizhu. Yang Kai pondered over the issue incessantly, wondering if he should believe in the oath that Guizhu made before and take him out of this place, satisfying everyone. This was undoubtedly very risky, and Yang Kai wasn't certain if Guizhu would really honor his word. All kinds of thoughts flowed through Yang Kai's mind and his expression became more and more serious. Back inside his own stone room, Yang Kai sat down cross-legged and began restoring himself while continuing to ponder. Outside his stone room, light footsteps sounded and Bai Yasun walked in unsolicited, circling around to Yang Kai's back before pasting her tender body onto him while gently massaging his shoulders. She then whispered lightly into his ear, Master, when the day comes that you can leave this place, can you also bring your slave with you? Naturally, Yang Kai said casually. Bai wore a forced smile and continued moving her hands as she spoke. You don't need to keep up appearances around me. I know you never planned on leading me out of this place with you. After all, I was rude and disrespectful to you from the moment we met, and I know I'm not a good person. Hearing her suddenly admit to her own faults like this, Xianxia felt confused and didn't know what kind of scheme she was up to. Inside the stone room, Baya wore a desolate look upon her face as she smiled bitterly. During this time, she had served Xianxia diligently, and although she had performed very docilely and well-behaved, not disobeying a single request made of her, she wasn't by any means stupid or submissive. On the contrary, she was a sharp woman with keen instincts. She had already clearly seen that when Xianxia found a way to leave here, he would not be bringing her with him. It was because of this that Baya had brought up the subject ahead of time. She wanted to change Xianxia's mind by showing her sincerity. If I can leave here, I will only listen to you in the future, obeying any command you may give me. I don't want to be left here, I truly don't. I swear that I will be loyal to you alone, Baya implored. Even a master like Guizhou had been trapped here for 2,000 years. If she was to be stranded here, dying alone of old age would certainly be her fate. Such an ending was simply terrifying. Xianxia didn't show any expression on his face and only stared at her deeply. Baya calmly met Xianxia's eyes, her beautiful face showing neutral look. After a while, Xianxia gently nodded. When that day comes, I'll think about it. Baya was startled but immediately wore a wry grin. Thank you. Good. I have some things to think about. Draw back. Xianxia waved. Baya elegantly bowed before quickly departing, her expression even more bitter than before because she knew Xianxia's last words to her just now were still perfunctory. He hadn't changed his mind at all. In the blink of an eye, 10 days had passed. On this day, another person died. This time it was Lu Guichen's subordinate, a Saint King Realm first stage master. He had been meditating on the mountainside when all of a sudden his body burst into blood fog. The death of a second person caused all the remaining cultivators to become even more anxious, all of them quickly seeking out Xianxia and asking him to think of a way to convince Guizhou to show mercy. Even Yuxi, who had always stubbornly refused to bow her head, did not hesitate to plead with Xianxia about this matter. Xianxia casually accepted their request. However, he knew persuasion was useless. The most important task he had right now was to let Guizhou see some clear hope of escape. Only when this old monster was happy would he not kill again. Xianxia put aside everyone else's worries and flew his star shuttle up to the seven-colored sky. Sitting cross-legged on his star shuttle, Xianxia condensed his divine sense into thousands of threads, attached his comprehension of the Tao of space to them, and had them shoot out. These threads of divine sense advanced at a rapid pace, leaping across space, ignoring the constraints of distance, quickly flying more than 1,000 kilometers away from Xianxia's position. Soon, Xianxia's brow wrinkled. He had released thousands of divine sense threads, but all of them quickly became lost inside the chaotic field, a number of them losing contact with Xianxia entirely, never to be found again. After an hour, Xianxia managed to take back 80% of his threads, but the remaining 20% he was unable to retrieve. His face paled as his soul received some slight damage. Stuffing a saint pill formulated to supplement his spiritual energy into his mouth, Xianxia began urging the power of the six-colored soul-warming lotus to repair his soul. After another hour, he once again released his divine sense. Inside the belly of the mountain, within a room filled with cold darkness, Guizhou grinned. Little brat, do you really think this old master doesn't know what kind of wicked scheme you're up to? If this old master doesn't give you a little pressure, you wouldn't put in any real effort. I hope that after this lesson you'll become more diligent. If not, this old master will have to start killing again. The first 2 times this old master showed some mercy, but next time I'll kill someone you have friendship with. I must see if you're really capable of ruthlessly discarding all of them. In Guizhou's eyes, Shin Tu, He Zhao, and He Miao's figures were suddenly reflected. At the same time, these 3 youths all felt a chill shoot up their spine as if they were being stared at by the incarnation of death, causing them to shiver unconsciously. Amidst the 7-colored sky, Xianxia silently sat atop his star shuttle, his divine sense shuttling back and forth randomly throughout the chaotic field. He could no longer realize the passing of time, all of the attention now focused on his threads of divine sense piercing the void. After repeating this process more than 20 times, each time losing roughly 20% of his soul's strength, he still hadn't obtained any substantial results. If it were anyone else in Xianxia's place, they wouldn't have been able to withstand using such a crazy method. Even if they were significantly stronger, once their soul took too much damage, it would leave a permanent injury that would render them disabled or demented. However, with the 6-colored soul-warming lotus, Xianxia could quickly repair his damaged soul, freeing him of such worries. At some point, Xianxia's spiritual energy once again dried up, and he couldn't help revealing a look of disappointment, because this time too he had failed. Just as he was about to take back his threads of divine sense, he suddenly noticed a subtle change in the field in a particular location and quickly focused the threads he had control over still to investigate it. To his surprise, when he tried to investigate this location, his divine sense threads easily passed through it, instantly breaking through the 7-colored sky and leaping out of the chaotic field. From these threads of divine sense, Xianxia saw countless beautiful and magnificent stars. Each of these stars exuded a powerful energy wave, some of them extremely cold, some of them blisteringly hot, some filled with fierce howling winds, while still others seemed like giant ancient trees growing amongst the starry sky. The chaotic abyss! Xianxia couldn't help crying out in surprise, his eyes lighting up. This was the first time any of his divine sense threads had broken free from this prisoner's cage and arrived at the chaotic abyss. He couldn't help feeling ecstatic. Being trapped here not only made Guizhou anxious but also caused Xianxia a great deal of anxiety. Remaining nearby an old monster like Guizhou made him feel a constant sense of life-threatening crisis. Now that he saw the chaotic abyss once again, he saw the hope of survival. Xianxia's heart was filled with joy. Forcefully calming himself down, Xianxia once again determined that his divine sense threads had arrived at the chaotic abyss before carefully withdrawing his divine sense to himself. As he recalled his divine sense threads, Xianxia left behind individual wisps of spiritual energy along the way to serve as guideposts. These wisps of divine sense, however, wouldn't be able to persist for too long. Xianxia estimated that in no more than one day, all of these threads would dissipate and disperse, but as long as he had these wisps to guide him, Xianxia didn't have to worry about becoming lost as he crossed the 7-colored sky's chaotic field and had full confidence in leaving this place. Soon, Xianxia took back all the other divine sense threads he could, and a look of hesitation appeared on his face. He wanted to follow these guideposts immediately. However, once he left, everyone left on this continent would definitely die. But more importantly, Xianxia wasn't certain he could successfully leave here before Guizhou intercepted him. Looking down at the black mark Guizhou had left on his arm, Xianxia sighed helplessly. He stood up, putting aside all other thoughts, and flew his star shuttle down towards the mountain. A short time later, Xianxia landed and walked straight to the stone room where Guizhou lived. Soon, Xianxia stood in front of the pitch-black room once more. "Little brat, what progress have you made?" Aware of his arrival, Guizhou asked in a deep voice from within the darkness, his pair of sharp eyes staring fixedly towards Xianxia as if refusing to miss even the slightest change in his expression. "We can leave," Xianxia replied. Stunned by this reply, Guizhou actually became dumbfounded for a time. After a while shouting in disbelief, "Really?" Guizhou's voice was trembling slightly, highlighting his inner excitement. "Little brat, you should know what your fate will be if you dare play games with this old master. This old master has waited far too long for this day." Guizhou muttered solemnly. "I'm not playing games with you, we really can leave," Xianxia replied indifferently. "Ha ha ha ha." Guizhou burst into wild laughter, his voice echoing like thunder, shaking the entire mountain around him. On the plain nearby the mountain, Lu Guichan, Yushi, and all the others wore panic-stricken expressions, none of them knowing what had suddenly caused such a great reaction from Guizhou, or if it signaled danger for them. Feeling insecure, all of them quickly gathered together, hoping to find some sense of security. "Good. I knew you wouldn't disappoint this old master." Guizhou's figure appeared in front of Xianxia, his hand grabbing onto Xianxia's arm with a vice-like grip as he cried out impatiently, Let's go. Let's go. I must leave this damned place. Because of his excitement, the strength of his grip was quite strong, nearly causing Yang Kai's bones to crack under the pressure. Don't be so anxious. Yang Kai struggled for a bit to work his arm loose from this vice grip. Don't be anxious? This old master is very anxious. Guizhou squinted at him, his eyes filled with malice. What scheme are you still thinking about? Senior is thinking too much. I just need to make a few things clear before we leave, Yang Kai said faintly. Guizhou's eyes flashed with a strange light, his excited expression suddenly calming down and gently nodding. Speak. This old master will hear you out. Yang Kai considered his words for a moment before saying, although Junior is willing to believe in Senior's character and commitment, for the sake of insurance, Junior wants to confirm once again that after we leave this place, you will not act against me. Guizhou grinned evilly. Rest assured, if you can satisfy this old master's desire to leave, this old master will not hurt you. Leaving this damned place is this old master's lifelong wish. After leaving, I will only be grateful to you. How could I even consider attacking you? Yang Kai's brow wrinkled, quickly nodding. I hope so, and I hope Senior can remember the oath he swore to me before. Good. This old master remembers. Guizhou pointed to his own head. I remember clearly. Good. Can we leave now? Yang Kai once again shook his head. Guizhou's expression sank as he grumbled impatiently. What else do you still have to do? I want to take a few people together with us. Guizhou immediately knew who he wanted to take away and didn't mind. As long as they don't get in the way of this old master, bring whoever you want. They won't get in your way. And I'll have to bother Senior to call them over. Guizhou looked at him with great interest. Who do you want to call? Yang Kai immediately listed a few names. Guizhou then nodded and summoned them with his divine sense. On the plain beside the mountain, Yushi, Hizeo, Himiao, and Shin-Tu, who were already nervous because of Guizhou's crazy laughter, suddenly went stiff and pale. This was because Guizhou's voice had just sounded in their ears. What happened? Lu Guichen hurriedly asked. Guizhou summoned us. Yushi couldn't help but swallow. The look Lu Guichen shot Yushi immediately changed, a hint of taking pleasure in others' misfortune present, along with some sorrow and relief, but he no longer said anything. I was also summoned. Shun-Tu's face paled as a deep sense of powerlessness filled his heart. I, as well. Baya rubbed her hands together nervously, her tender body shivering. What should we do, master? Hizeo looked at Yushi nervously. Yushi's heart was also in chaos, not sure what to say for a while. When they first arrived here, there were more than 100 of them, yet almost all of them had died at Guizhou's hands. Today, Guizhou had actually summoned so many people of them at once, though, who knows what his intentions were. It's a blessing, not a curse. Yushi smiled and gave up any plans to escape because, in front of an Origin King Realm Master, there was no way to escape. Come with me. If today is the day of our deaths, Master will at least be able to accompany you on the road. She looked at Hizeo and Himiao with great affection, secretly deciding to do whatever she could to protect her two disciples. Even if this was no different from a mantis trying to stop a cart, she wouldn't hesitate. The three of them began walking up the mountain while Shin-Tu and Baya exchanged a glance before sighing and keeping up. Looking at their departing backs, a cultivator from Purple Star came up to Lu Guichan and said, Senior, they probably won't return? Lu Guichan sighed softly and smiled bitterly. I don't know I should feel glad or sad for them, but for now we've managed to escape. As for what will happen next time, I'm afraid. Saying so, he showed a dispirited look to his three remaining subordinates. All of them thought that those who had been summoned were going to die. Yang Kai waited in the heart of the mountain and after a while saw Shin-Tu and the others walk in. Gently nodded and was about to say hello when he suddenly wore a confused expression. What's wrong with you all? Why do you all look so depressed? The corner of Shin-Tu's mouth twitched as he somewhat unwillingly replied. We were summoned by Guizhou. Letting out a sigh, he reached out and gently patted Yang Kai's shoulder, whispering quietly, Brother, I'm afraid that there's no way we can flee from this disaster. If you have the chance to escape from this place, please deliver a message to Hung Luo Chamber of Commerce. Tell my father I'm sorry for disappointing him, and that if I had only known this would happen, I wouldn't have been so stubborn and disobedient. Appearing as if he was making his last confession, Shintu looked unusually solemn. Hung Luo Chamber of Commerce? Yushi heard this and directed a thoughtful look towards Shintu, her eyes flashing a slight bit of doubt. Remember to deliver my last message. Of course, if you can't leave here, that is. Shintu patted Yang Kai's shoulder, sighing heavily again. Yang Kai's expression became weird, but after thinking about it, he suddenly understood why these people were so downcast, like they were marching to their own execution, causing him to smile with astonishment. What do you think Senior Guizhu Senior summoned you all for? I don't know, but it's certainly not anything good, Shintu replied before gawking towards Yang Kai. Do you know what we've been summoned for? Can you tell us so we can prepare ourselves? Everyone cast their vision towards him. I asked Senior Guizhu to call all of you over, Yang Kai bluntly said. Everyone's expression became puzzled. I'm going to take you out of here, Yang Kai continued. Shintu shook visibly while Yushi, Hizeo, Miao, and Baiya's beautiful eyes lit up as they stared towards Yang Kai incredulously. I found a way to leave this place, and when I told Senior Guizhu about it, he agreed to let you come with us. Wah! Did I hear you right? Can we really leave this place? Shintu muttered absent-mindedly, his face filled with shock and disbelief. Hizeo and Miao's pretty faces both lifted, their eyes filling with a light of gratitude. Miao eagerly asking, Yang Kai, are you telling the truth? You're not deceiving us, right? Yang Kai shook his head. Hearing this, the little girl suddenly became filled with joy as she covered her small mouth and teared up. Good, good. She was so excited that she couldn't stop crying. Just now, she had thought being summoned by Guizhu, she would have to die. But now those worries had disappeared and were replaced with the prospect of being able to escape from this prison. So her reaction was only natural. Hizeo gently held her shoulders, the two sisters exchanging a knowing glance and smiled. Baiya seemed to have been shocked by this news, standing there stupidly for a time, unable to compose herself as she stared towards Yang Kai, unable to understand why he had suddenly changed his mind. Not long ago, Baiya had looked for Yang Kai to discuss this very matter, but the perfunctory answer she had received at the time had been very discouraging. Yet not he was actually telling her he would bring her out from this place. Baiya couldn't help wondering if she was dreaming right now. Amongst this group, though, the most confused was undoubtedly Yushi. Staring at Yang Kai, her look was particularly complex, her expression fluctuating, no one able to determine what she was thinking. She wanted to offer her thanks, but she couldn't find the words to say. Her heart was tangled up in knots. You all wait here for a moment. Baiya, come with me. Yang Kai didn't pay any attention to Yushi and instead beckoned to Baiya. Baiya quickly responded and followed after Yang Kai. Standing a short distance away, Yang Kai stared at this promiscuous woman, his brow slightly wrinkled, eventually letting out a long sigh. To be honest, I don't really want to take you out from this place. Whether you live or die means nothing to me. Baiya smiled bitterly. I understand, after all, I did many terrible things to you before. There is a saying that one's behavior is easy to change, but their nature is not. You are a woman who treats men as nothing but playthings, a resource to be consumed to increase your own strength. Right now you may be acting docile, but who knows what will happen once we leave this place. Perhaps your original personality will reassert itself, and you will bear a deep grudge for what has transpired here, then bide your time to seek vengeance. No, I won't do such a thing, Baiya quickly waved. I don't trust you. Yang Kai shook his head. Baiya's face went white, as if she was seeing the hope of leaving here slipping away before her very eyes. However, during this time you did serve me well. And, whether it was out of necessity or sincerity, you took care of me very attentively. So if I was to simply discard you here, that would be too ungrateful. What do I need to do to win your trust? Baiya understood the meaning of his words, and her eyes immediately lit up, quickly asking Yang Kai, Just say the word and I will comply. Yang Kai gently nodded. Let loose your knowledge-seized defenses. I must take your soul brand and control whether you live or die. Baya was stunned, her face filling with a look of horror as she hesitated for a moment. But she quickly recovered and nodded, lowering her knowledge-seized defenses. In the next moment, Yang Kai's divine sense penetrated into Baya's knowledge sea and shuttled back and forth. After a few breaths, Yang Kai took back his divine sense as well as Baya's soul brand. Baya's face had turned slightly pale from this experience, her red lips muttering, "Is this enough?" Yang Kai looked at her in a strange expression and nodded. "Yes." After a pause, he asked again, "Just how many men have you harmed so far?" Baya pursed her lips and giggled. "Did you peek at my memories?" Yang Kai shrugged his shoulders. "I didn't intend to." Inside Baya's knowledge sea, so many of her memories were filled with obscene scenes, so much so that even an experienced man like Yang Kai felt frightened. This woman was nothing less than a walking disaster. Any man she targeted would be unable to escape her poisonous hands, ultimately resulting in their vitality being sucked away. But when each of these men died, their expressions were all filled with bliss, as if they remained ignorant of the terrible fate that had befallen them until the very end. Yang Kai couldn't help shivering slightly. If it weren't for the many twists and turns back on the Purple Star starship, his life may have ended like all those others, a dry husk beneath Baya's profane power. "I am only yours now." Baya bit her thin red lips seductively, her tender body seemingly emitting a fragrant pheromone that assaulting Yang Kai's mind. "I will serve you even more attentively from now on. No need. I don't want to have anything to do with you. After we leave here, you and I will part ways." Yang Kai snorted. "You shouldn't really be—" Baya covered her mouth and swept her eyes up and down, but mostly down Yang Kai. "Shouldn't really be what? Do you have problems down there?" Baya asked, the doubt she had held in her heart for so long, her eyes staring fixedly between Yang Kai's legs, a tinge of sadness and pity appearing on her face. Yang Kai's face went black as he shouted, "If you dare talk any more nonsense, I'll leave you to rot here." Saying so, he no longer bothered with this crazy woman, turning around and leaving, Baya's delightful giggles resounding behind him. She seemingly didn't care one bit about Yang Kai's threat. After Yang Kai arrived back at the place where everyone had gathered, Guizhou appeared leisurely. Everyone who had been whispering back and forth a month ago promptly shut up. "Done?" Guizhou looked at Yang Kai. Then let's go." Guizhou laughed. "Wait a moment. I have some things to say first." Yang Kai turned to face the crowd and put on a solemn expression. "All of you need to know that in order to take you out from this place, I will be using a method to tear space." "Tear space?" Yushi called out in shock as she stared Yang Kai. "Do you understand the Tao of space?" Nodding, Yang Kai admitted, "A little." Yushi's beautiful eyes lit up, suddenly turning to look at Guizhou. No wonder Senior Guizhou made an agreement with you. It was like this." All of them had been speculating about just what would make Guizhou take interest in Yang Kai, even going so far as to protect his safety and provide him with the best cultivation environment. His attitude towards Yang Kai completely different from all the others. Now they understood. Being able to tear space meant Yang Kai had the ability to escape from this prison. This was similar to the approach Guizhou had researched for 1,000 years, his one hope to leave here, but also something he could not grasp clearly. No one had thought that Yang Kai was also familiar with the Tao of space. The Tao of space had always been an extremely esoteric field, one that was extremely difficult to comprehend and even more difficult to practice. The number of cultivators even slightly familiar with the Tao of space was extremely small. Even if one were to take the entire star field into consideration, cultivators proficient in the mysteries of space were a rarity. A master like Guizhou, who had been studying the Tao of space for 1,000 years, hadn't even had any significant accomplishments, the space array he had painstakingly arranged ultimately being of no use. "Brother?" Shintu licked his dry lips and muttered, "Do you really come from a lower world? You haven't been playing the pig to eat a tiger this whole time, right?" Although Shintu was the one asking, this question was the one present wanted to ask. all of them suspecting that Yang Kai actually came from some extraordinary background and these days had just been putting on an act. Yang Kai smiled and shook his head. If I hadn't come from a lower world, how could I have been so ignorant about the star field's common sense? Shintu thought about it for a moment before nodding lightly. Fair enough. Since he met Yang Kai had asked him many questions about things even children should have understood. Saying he was acting the whole time really was a bit of a stretch. But regardless, you're really an amazing guy. Shintu grinned wryly. And why are you telling us this now? Because in order to lead you away from this place, I need you to coordinate with me. Yang Kai's expression became dignified again. I can tear space and allow all of you to enter the turbulent flow of the void in order to lead you out of this place. But the path I create by tearing space is very different from a long-established void corridor. Void corridors that have existed for extended periods of time have already stabilized and only connect 2 points in space together, allowing people to freely move between those 2 points while on the other hand, the path I create while tearing space is fluid and unstable. The looks on everyone's face changed slightly as they suddenly realized that things weren't as simple as they seemed. The road leading out of this place was apparently full of thorns. I need all of you to guarantee that you won't use any of your strength while following me. Yang Kai glanced around at everyone in a serious manner, his eyes eventually landing on Gue Zhu. This is especially true for you, senior, because once you release your strength, there's a high chance you will disturb the void turbulence around us, causing us to sink further into the void. Once we lose our position in the void, even I won't be able to safely bring us out. Oh, Guizhu grinned and nodded. Good. This old master won't use any of his strength. Do all of you understand? Yang Kai glanced over at the others. Everyone nodded together. Good. Other than that, there's nothing else. Just follow me and don't cause any trouble. Yang Kai thought about it for a moment, but really couldn't think of anything else to say. If you're ready, let's get underway. Saying so, he reached out his hand and sliced through the space in front of him, opening a thin, dark slit. Then, as if 2 giant hands were pulling it apart, the slit opened up until it was more than 1 meter in width and 2 meters in height, forming a pitch-black portal to the void out of which a terrifying void energy pulsed. Guizhu's expression became serious as he peered deep into the void, while the others were only more nervous than him. Yang Kai pulled one of the high-quality luminous stones from the wall, then stepped into the portal without even saying a word. Guizhu's eyes flashed and did not rush to keep up with Yang Kai, but instead tossed Shintu inside. Baya followed Shintu, then Guizhu, then Yushi and her 2 disciples stepped inside last. After all 7 people entered it, the tear in space quickly and silently disappeared. Amidst the profound darkness, the only source of light was from the glowing stone in Yang Kai's hand. This stone served as a guidepost for everyone. None of them dared fall behind, each of them walking tepidly through this turbulent space, quietly observing their surroundings. They had never had such a peculiar experience, none of them ever even thinking they would one day be able to walk through the void. The turbulent flow of space around them was disorienting and seemed like the mouth of the most terrifying beast imaginable just waiting to swallow them whole. All around them was like a thick swamp, with pitfalls and sinkholes everywhere. One careless misstep and they would be pulled under, banished to the end of the world forever. Everyone's heart pounded loudly in their chest. Even as they admired the scene around them, it did not lessen their trepidation. The only thing that gave them some comfort was that everywhere Yang Kai passed, the chaotic flow of space seemed to be smoothed out, and the unsteady ground became solid, making it easy to walk upon. Everyone was keenly aware that Yang Kai's aura had some kind of mysterious resonance with the turbulence here, allowing him to understand its flow and accurately find his way through it. As they held their breaths, each one of them followed exactly in the footsteps of the person in front of them. Suddenly, a cry of surprise rang out, and Yang Kai couldn't help but pause and turn back to ask, "What happened?" "Nothing." He Miao patted her chest and apologized. "Sorry, I suddenly felt like I was falling." Looking down at where her foot was, space seemed to have burst open and shattered like a broken mirror. Staring into this crack gave one the illusion they were falling into the abyss. Yang Kai nodded and didn't say anything more, simply continuing to lead the way. Little girl, don't startle us like that. This old master was nearly scared to death by you. Guizhou turned back and grinned towards He Miao, his gloomy smile causing He Miao's bad complexion to turn even paler. Yang Kai, who was walking ahead, suddenly came to a halt, stretched out his hand, and tore through space again, opening another crack in the void. Quickly, he stepped through. The others followed right on his heels. Breathing in the fresh air, everyone felt like they had just emerged from the depths of purgatory. Looking around for a while, Shintu suddenly furrowed his brow and commented, "Yang Kai, we don't seem to have gone far." As he spoke, he turned his glance downwards. Beneath the feet of their group was a giant burnt mountain peak, and nearby there were a few cultivators moving about. These people were clearly Lu Guichun and the other remaining Purple Star cultivators. They had also noticed the situation above them and were pointing towards Yang Kai's group, not understanding the situation. We really haven't gone too far, 1,000 kilometers or so I'd say." Yang Kai nodded and explained, "This time was just to familiarize you with the feeling of moving through the void. What comes next is the main event." Saying so, he pointed above his head at the seven-colored sky. "We have to break through the chaotic field surrounding this floating continent." "Got it," Shintu nodded. "Let's go." Yang Kai smiled faintly. "I can use this method a few times in a row." Carefully sensing the fluctuations from the divine sense marks he had left behind, Yang Kai confirmed the direction he needed to go and tore space again. As everyone was stepping into the tier, He Miao suddenly turned her head and squinted, whispering softly, "Master, Lu Guichan and his people seem to be coming here. Don't care about them. Keep up," Yushi urged. Lu Guichan, just wait here for death." Yushi sneered softly as she shot a glance down towards the ground before finally stepping through the portal. A moment later, Lu Guichan, who was riding his star shuttle from down below, arrived only to discover no trace of anyone left and quickly realized that they had been abandoned here, his face draining of all color. The few people that Guizhou had summoned before were all clearly related to Yang Kai, with the only ones not summoned being his group from Purple Star. At the time he had the attitude of taking pleasure in others' misfortune, thinking that Yushi and the others were walking to their deaths. But little did know that it was actually the path to survival. On the contrary, he and his remaining 3 subordinates had forever been abandoned here. His face twisted in rage and he let out a roar of anger. The seven-colored sky was formed by the intersection of the many chaotic energy fields from the stars of the chaotic abyss, forming a 10,000-kilometer wide domain of distorted space. Somewhere amongst this chaotic domain, space suddenly split open with Yang Kai walking out. There, he stopped and quickly began determining his position. Sensing the divine sense mark he had left behind was not far away, although there was some slight error in the position, he had emerged within an acceptable margin of error. As long as he followed the paths laid out by these guideposts, Yang Kai was confident they could arrive at the chaotic abyss. Once they arrived at the chaotic abyss, they would really be free. One after another, figures appeared behind him, and after everyone saw the scenery in front of them, they were filled with amazement because all around them was a gorgeous seven-colored space. However, everyone quickly discovered that their divine senses couldn't play any role here because as soon as they extended them out more than a few meters, they would become affected by the chaotic domain, possibly even becoming lost without the possibility of recovery. Guizhou gently nodded. "Very good. You really have the ability to leave this place. This old master was not mistaken about you." At a glance, he could tell that this place was above the floating continent, a place he had never been to, increasing his confidence in Yang Kai greatly. Seemingly because the wish he had held onto for 2,000 years was about to be completed. His expression wasn't as ghastly as before and instead filled with a smile of expectation. Yang Kai glanced at him and smiled lightly. The black mark on his arm, however, was sending out an even chillier aura than before. He knew that Guizhou was on guard against him, lest he try to suddenly abandon him here in this strange space. If he were really to be left here, Guizhou wasn't confident he could return to the floating continent. Yang Kai did have such thoughts, but he didn't dare make any rash actions. He didn't have the confidence to plot against Guizhou's right before his eyes. So, For now, he behaved very honestly. Once again, perceiving the position of the next guidepost, Xianxia tore space. Xianxia led the other 6 people through the void, 1,000 kilometers at a time, everything proceeding smoothly, bringing them closer and closer to the chaotic abyss. After tearing space 5 times, Xianxia immediately sat down cross-legged and gasped for breath. "Wait here a moment. I need to restore myself for a while." Every time Xianxia tore space, it drained a huge amount of his strength, so it was impossible for him to do it continuously without end. The spiritual energy in his knowledge sea had already been greatly consumed, so he needed to supplement it in case some unexpected situation came up. Otherwise, he wouldn't have the strength to deal with it. After an hour, Xianxia had finished restoring himself and began leading the way forward again. Every time he tore space, Xianxia would first confirm the direction he needed to go by tracing the divine sense marks he had left behind. Otherwise, he wouldn't have been able to advance through the confusing 7-colored field. Things progressed far smoother than Xianxia had anticipated, none of his previous concerns coming to pass. The 6 people behind him also remembered Xianxia's warning and didn't dare use any of their strength. Even Guizhou carefully cooperated, not stirring up any trouble along the way. Everyone seemingly felt that so long as things continued on like this, they would soon reach the chaotic abyss. With hope right in front of them, everyone's spirits rose. Somewhere amongst the 7-colored sky, Xianxia's figure again emerged from the void, quickly followed by the other 6. Turning around, he smiled to the group. "This is the last jump. Once we pass through the void again, we'll reach the chaotic abyss." Hearing him say this, everyone's eyes lit up and their sense of anticipation increased once more. "Little brat, make it quick. This old master can't wait to see the outside world." Guizhou grinned and encouraged. "I have to restore myself again," Xianxia said faintly. "Good. Make it quick." Xianxia sat down without saying another word. He wasn't lying. There really was just one last jump left. As long as he tore space once more, Xianxia was confident they could arrive at the chaotic abyss. But even so, he still felt quite uneasy. This uneasiness, of course, came from Guizhou. Xianxia had no way to guarantee that this old monster, who had lived more than 2,000 years, would keep his promise not to harm him after they escaped. In this situation, he could only passively choose to believe in him while praying Guizhou would not go back on his word. This feeling of helplessness made Xianxia very uncomfortable. "Senior, can you take back this thing in my arm?" Xianxia suddenly opened his eyes and asked Guizhou. "We're almost free now. Is there any reason to keep monitoring me?" Guizhou grinned lightly and didn't say anything, simply nodding and waving his hand, removing the black mark left atop Xianxia's arm, taking back the evil specter it was made from into his body. Xianxia's mind and body both felt as if they became lighter, like a shackle had been removed from him. "Little brat, behave yourself and this old master won't make trouble for you," Guizhou snorted. "Senior is broad-minded," Xianxia chuckled, standing up and taking a soft breath before tearing space apart under the gaze of the crowd. He, as always, was the first to step through. After entering the void, though, Xianxia's expression suddenly became dignified as he stood in place, not moving forward and instead silently perceiving his surroundings. "Why are you stopping now? Are you still trying to play some kind of tricks at this last moment?" Guizhou, who had followed Xianxia in, saw him acting strangely and couldn't help grumbling. Xianxia didn't answer him, though, and continued his investigation. Suddenly, his face changed and he shouted, "Move quickly! Don't stop! Space here is far more chaotic than anywhere we've been so far. Probably because we're closer to the chaotic abyss." Seeing the alarmed look on Xianxia's face, the other 6 people realized the seriousness of the situation and quickly followed after him, moving as fast as they safely could. Up until now, wherever Xianxia passed, the void turbulence would temporarily subside, allowing everyone to safely pass while not being dragged into the surrounding chaotic flow. But now, the other 6 in the group could faintly feel that where they were stepping had become less smooth and muddier, like there was a faint suction tugging at them from all directions. The turbulent flow also seemed closer than before, like a swarm of locusts that were eyeing them from nearby. A dense sound of cracking resounded all around the group, sending shivers into each of their souls. Glancing around, the barrier separating all of them from the turbulent flow of the void was clearly beginning to shatter. From the surrounding void, the force of attraction increased greatly and threatened to swallow them whole. Although none of them besides Xianxia were proficient in the Tao of space, they were well aware of the terrors of the void. Once any of them fell into one of these cracks, with no references to find their way out, they would become forever lost, never to return again. Therefore, they huddled even closer to Xianxia, not daring to fall behind. Xianxia's expression was also solemn, not saying a single word and devoting all his attention to moving forward, soon arriving at a certain point and stretching out his hand to tear a hole in the void. When this tear was opened, from the other side of the portal, a familiar scene appeared in everyone's eyes. Massive, energetic stars arranged closely together, creating a vibrant and enchanting picture. The chaotic abyss. Xianxia smiled and prepared to step out. But just then, Xintu and Baiya suddenly shouted in alarm, as if something had happened just behind them. Upon hearing their shouts, Xianxia turned his head and saw Guizu's figure flicker, as he prepared to take one step ahead and flee through the portal. However, in the instant he circulated his strength to propel himself forward. He had also stimulated all the turbulence throughout the surrounding void and shattered the safe passage Xianxia had established. Before Guizu could escape, half his body was swallowed up by the void, and no matter how hard he tried to struggle, he was unable to escape its grasp. Yuxi and her two disciples who were following behind Guizu had also been caught up in the turbulent flow and were quickly sinking into the void. When Xianxia turned to look back, he saw the three women staring at him with pleading looks as they silently prayed to him for rescue. Even now, all of them were carefully abiding by Xianxia's words and had not used any of their strength. Guizu, on the other hand, upon noticing the dire situation he was in, pushed his strength wildly in an attempt to break through the crack that was trying to swallow him. However, it was like the crevice he had fallen into was filled with quicksand, and the more Guizu struggled, the faster he sunk, causing his old face to pale. Fuck! Xintu couldn't help cursing. Brother Yang, let's go. Xianxia's look changed, and a look of hesitation flashed across his eyes. He glanced over at Guizu, who was being engulfed by the void, only his head still visible. He then looked over at Hizeo and Himiao, all sorts of thoughts surfacing in his mind. Xianxia went stiff, as a struggle took place in his heart. With just one more step, he could reach the chaotic abyss and escape from under Guizu's oppression. And now that this old monster had gotten caught up in the void turbulence, it was likely he would never be able to find his way out, forcing him to endure an even bitterer and difficult life than the one where he was trapped on the floating continent, a lifetime spent drifting through the void. Xianxia very much wished for such an outcome. However, Hizeo and Himiao would also die. Xianxia still remembered when Guizu had wanted to throw him into the space array to test the void corridor stability. How Hizeo had stood up bravely and spoken for him. Brother Yang! Xintu shouted again. Xianxia was lead the way and blocking both him and Baiya from exiting. Xintu was so anxious to pass him and flee to safety he could barely contain himself. Baiya's heart was also in chaos, her beautiful eyes staring towards Xianxia, wondering what choice he would make. Xianxia's hesitation only lasted a moment though before his eyes became firm. Sending a palm strike towards the portal leading out of the void, he released a cluster of pitch-black demonic flame that temporarily helped it open. Go! Xianxia shouted before grabbing hold of Xintu and Baiya and tossing them out, then with a gloomy expression flew in the opposite direction. Brother Yang! Xintu's face paled as he passed by Xianxia, but before he could recover, he found himself already amidst the chaotic abyss. Inside the void, Xianxia soon arrived in front of the void crevice which was swallowing the group of four and stared at Guizu, hurriedly shouting, If you want to live, withdraw your strength. Don't make this more difficult for me. Guizu's face was pure white by this point and quickly took back his strength. No longer struggling. I'll save you now. Don't panic. Don't do anything at all. Xianxia called out to Hizeo and Himiao before sitting down in front of the four of them, his spiritual energy and Saint Chi bursting out and pouring into the crevice. Incorporating his own understanding of the Tao of space into this crevice slowly allowed Yang Kai to produce a resonance with it and eventually control it. Soon, the four people who were gradually sinking down were pleasantly surprised to find that the suction, which was drawing them in, was gradually becoming weaker and soon disappeared altogether. Not only that, an opposite force which was trying to push them out soon appeared and began freeing them from the void crevice. All four of their expressions brightened with Hizeo and Miao tearing up as they stared at Yang Kai, their eyes filled with joy. They had thought that this time they had encountered an inescapable disaster and would certainly die. They hadn't anticipated Yang Kai would return at the last moment. They all knew just what kind of risk he was taking to save them. This caused their moods to undergo a subtle change as an inexplicable feeling filled their hearts and brought them a sense of warmth and comfort. The feelings of panic and despair were quickly swept away, and a radiant glow appeared on their faces, seemingly no longer afraid of any danger. Even Yushi, at this moment, finally changed her opinion about Yang Kai, a look of pure gratitude appearing on her pretty face. Ah! Miao suddenly screamed and pointed to Yang Kai. The other three all turned to look in the direction she was pointing, and their expression sank once more. At the spot where Yang Kai was sitting, a new set of cracks was forming, threatening to swallow his body into the void crevice. As time passed, more and more cracks formed and spread out, seeming to engulf the entire space surrounding them. Yang Kai's eyes suddenly shot open as he shouted, "Come out!" With this shout, the four others who hadn't dared to move so far were finally freed from the void crevice and immediately rushed outward. Whether the ground beneath her was too unstable or she was too anxious in that moment, Yushi stumbled and nearly fell, but before she could hit the ground, Yang Kai wrapped his arm around her waist and leapt out just as the cracked space around them began to completely collapse. Yushi's body instantly went stiff when she felt Yang Kai's strong hand grab hold of her. It was like she had been struck by lightning, all her strength draining from her body. Her eyes landing on the junior carrying her, she suddenly felt an inexplicable sense of safety, like she had just entered a tranquil harbor that gently cradled her, causing her mood to become incredibly complicated. Amidst the chaotic abyss, Shintu and Baya looked anxiously towards the black portal leading to the void, hoping to see Yang Kai. However, they were unable to see the situation inside, and the demonic flames burning the edge of the portal, keeping it open, were already beginning to fade. Yet there were still no signs of the ones still inside escaping. If they didn't escape soon, Yang Kai and the others would be forced to remain inside forever. They couldn't have had an accident, right? Shintu stuttered. Brother Yang's understanding of the Tao of space has reached a very high level. Nothing should have happened to them, wouldn't you say? Saying so, he turned to look at Baya, hoping she would affirm his statement. I don't know. Baya shook her head, her mood extremely complicated. But I hope nothing bad happens to him. Yang Kai currently possessed her soul brand, allowing him to control whether she lived or died. So if he didn't emerge and instead became lost in the void, she would also die. More than anyone, she didn't wish to see anything happen to Yang Kai. They're coming out. Shun Tu suddenly shouted as he saw a figure leap out from the crack just as it was about to close. Naturally, it was Gue Zhu. Seeing his face, Shin Tu anxiously called out, "How is it you? Where's Brother Yang?" "Right behind." Gue Zhu turned back just in time to see the Hizeo Miao sisters escape, swiftly followed by Yang Kai and Yushi. Just as Yang Kai stepped out from the void, the demonic flames holding the portal open burned out, and the crack in space disappeared without a trace. Haha! I knew Brother Yang's luck wouldn't run out here. How could he have had any accidents? Shun Tu laughed and was sincerely happy for Yang Kai, but as he said so, his expression suddenly became weird as he stared towards him with great interest, an ambiguous grin quickly spreading across his face. Everyone else's eyes also gathered on Yang Kai, each of their expressions becoming weird. Yang Kai's arm was currently carrying Yushi by her waist, and Yushi actually showed no signs of resisting. Her neck dyed bright red as a slightly unusual expression filled her pretty face. Miao couldn't help covering her mouth in shock when she saw this incredible scene, not knowing what had happened after she and her elder sister left that caused her master and Yang Kai to become so intimate with one another. What was most incredible about this situation, though, was that her master wasn't struggling at all. In the past, her master had never let any man get anywhere close to her, much less allow them to embrace her. This was undoubtedly a first. If such a scene were to be shown to all her master's admirers back in Sword Union, He Miao didn't know how many of them would come seeking a fight with Yang Kai. He Zhao coughed lightly, unsure what she should say to remind her master of her current position. Being stared at by all these eyes, Yushi's expression became even more embarrassed, and she couldn't wait to jump back into the void and never come out again. Yang Kai, on the other hand, didn't say a word and easily put Yushi down before swiftly falling back 1,000 meters, staring coldly and vigilantly towards Guizhu as he prepared to tear space once again. The ambiguous atmosphere was instantly broken and gave way to an incredibly grave one, everyone else staring towards Guizhu worriedly. Now that everyone had left the floating continent and successfully arrived at the chaotic abyss, Guizhu had accomplished the wish he had cherished for 2,000 years. If at this time he suddenly decided to start a slaughter of the people present, besides Yang Kai who might have a chance to escape, everyone here would have to surrender their lives. With the chaotic abyss as a backdrop, everything went silent as everyone's mood became anxious. Guizhu grinned lightly, his pair of gloomy eyes staring towards Yang Kai who stood 1,000 meters away, no one able to guess what he was thinking. Violent heartbeats echoed as loudly as drums from everyone's chest. "Little brat, what are you afraid of?" Guizhu asked. Yang Kai's mouth twitched as he bluntly said, "I'm afraid Senior will not honor his words and go back on our agreement. Is this old master so untrustworthy?" Guizhu coldly snorted. "For even saying that, this old master could condemn you to 12 deaths. Don't think that you can escape from this old master's palm by tearing space. You're too weak. I can easily stop you before you even try. I believe Senior has such strength. But if you must act, Junior won't just sit still waiting for death," Yang Kai said solemnly. "Senior Guizhu, in light of Brother Yang fulfilling his promise and bringing you out from that place, can't you?" Shintu wanted to put in a good word, but before he could finish, Guizhu stared coldly at him, causing Shintu's expression to fill with pain as he gripped his head and howled miserably. Seeing this, Yang Kai slightly paled. "Senior." Yushi also opened her mouth to speak, but Guizhu only glanced at her before Yushi's face became pale, and she began screaming just like Shintu. "This old master is Guizhu. This old master was never a man of his word. You believing in me was your greatest mistake," Guizhu scorned. His body suddenly blurred and Yang Kai's heart screamed out in alert. But before he could tear space, a gloomy aura pressed down on him, making him unable to move. Guizhu appeared in front of Yang Kai's eyes, a sneer upon his face. "Good. This old master really intended to kill you after you brought me out from that cage. As for the reason, it was because you never sincerely wished to work with me," Guizhu sneered. "You think this old master didn't know what you were planning? It was only because this old master's strength dominated over you that you cooperated. If it were any other Saint King or Origin returning realm cultivator, they would have been long ago abandoned by you." Yang Kai didn't say anything, because what Guizhu said was the truth. It was only because this old monster's strength was so much higher that Yang Kai couldn't plot against him. A few breaths ago, this old master still planned to settle things as such. Guizhu's expression suddenly changed and a frown appeared on his face. But now, this old master has changed his mind. You put your own life at risk to save mine, and although I know that was not your intention and you only did so to rescue those 2 little girls, if this old master were to kill you, that would be too ungrateful. If word spread out, it would only turn this old master into a joke. This old master doesn't like the feeling of owing someone a debt, regardless of the reasons. You saved this old master's life, giving him the chance to seek his vengeance. So this old master will spare your life." Yang Kai's eyes flashed as he stared at Guizhu dubiously. "Surprised? Did you think this old master was someone lacking all sense of humanity?" Yang Kai frowned and shook his head. Junior never thought so. Since Senior did not forget his hatred for an entire 2,000 years, he could not lack humanity. Perhaps 2,000 years ago, Senior was a good man. "Ha ha ha." Guizhou laughed riotously. A good man? Good, this old master was really a good man at the time, but 2,000 years of hatred and solitude is enough to change one's nature. Little brat, do you want to follow this old master? Guizhou suddenly lowered his voice and stared at Xianxia seriously. This old master appreciates your talent. If you follow this old master, no one across this vast star field will dare to embarrass you. This old master can also guide your cultivation, allowing you to reach the origin returning realm in the shortest time. With your aptitude, that will definitely be less than 100 years. Xianxia didn't even think about it before shaking his head. Senior's offer is quite generous, but Junior doesn't intend to live his life like this. You would refuse this old master? Guizhou looked at Xianxia with amazement. You actually dare reject this old master's offer? Are you looking down on this old master? His expression suddenly became violent. His eyes filled with dissatisfaction because of Xianxia's answer, even arousing his just settled killing intent. Xianxia, however, just smiled and said, Senior must be joking. You are an Origin King Realm powerhouse on the same level as a Star Master. I don't think anyone wouldn't wish to take shelter under your wings. Junior as greatly admires your achievements. How could I possibly look down on you? Then why do you refuse? Xianxia frowned for a moment before saying, Junior doesn't wish to grow up as a greenhouse flower, too delicate to withstand the wind and rain. I believe Senior's words that with your help, within less than 100 years I will reach the origin returning realm, but perhaps after maturing in such an environment, the origin returning realm will be my limit. I wish to pursue higher realms, such as the realm of Senior. In order to do that, I must temper myself with danger and slaughter. Guizhou's originally unhappy look gave way to one of approval as he nodded to Xianxia. What you say has some truth. This old master won't force you. If you ever change your mind, you can always come find me. This old master's name will soon resound throughout the star field, so it shouldn't be difficult to seek me out. Junior wishes Senior success in his revenge, and that your 1,000-year-old grudge may be swiftly settled. Xianxia cupped his fists. These words seemed to go straight to Guizhou's heart and elicited a smile on his face. A moment later he nodded. Little brat, seems you can speak well. This old master appreciates you more and more. And here, you can hold on to this thing, it's useless to this old master in any case. Consider it as a thank you for saving my life. Saying so, Guizhou tossed a small black object over to Xianxia. Xianxia instinctually caught it, and upon examining it, he discovered that it was some kind of token engraved with a single word, Emperor. Even though it was just a simple engraving, the sense of oppression that this emperor gave off made it difficult for Xianxia to even breathe. The Star Sect Command? Xianxia exclaimed. He remembered that this token had been found inside Yuxi's space ring by Guizhou. When this token had appeared, Yuxi, Lu Guichan, and everyone else had shown near fanatically looks. Xianxia had realized then that this Star Sect Command was some kind of supreme treasure that was enough to attract everyone's attention. Senior, this thing, don't you know what it is? Guizhou asked. Xianxia shook his head. And you come from a lower world, so not knowing is understandable. A Star Sect Command, also known as a Star Emperor token, is the token of the Starry Sky Great Emperor. Starry Sky Great Emperor? Xianxia asked in confusion. He is a legendary character from the past, and was said to have single-handedly controlled an entire star field at one point. His cultivation was exceedingly high, superior to even this old master. When he took control of the star field, he produced 10 Star Emperor tokens, each one of them sealing one of his divine abilities, each of which was capable of destroying a star. Xianxia paled as his eyes nearly popped out of their sockets, only now realizing why Lu Guichan and Yuxi were willing to expend so many resources and people to compete for this Star Emperor token. He also thoroughly understood just how precious this Star Emperor token was. Each Star Emperor token was imbued with the power of the Starfield Great Emperor, which when unleashed was capable of killing an Origin King Realm powerhouse. Xianxia was so shocked he was unable to speak. Back in this old master's era, someone used a Star Emperor token to kill an Origin King Realm master. Can this thing really kill an origin king? That's what the rumors say at least. This old master obviously never witnessed such a feat, so I can't say for certain. It may just be an exaggeration, but even if it is, the power it contains can't be underestimated. After so many years though, most of the 10-star Emperor tokens have probably been used, so guard this one carefully. If you ever encounter some kind of disaster you cannot handle, it may just save your life. But remember, each Star Emperor token can only be used once, Guizhou explained. Yang Kai suddenly felt that this Star Emperor token was an extremely heavy and hesitantly looked towards Guizhou. Senior, this token is so precious. Why would you give it to me? Guizhou grinned. This old master has no children or disciples. On top of that, with my current strength, there is no one in this star field who can threaten me, so what use would I have for it? If you don't want it, just throw it away. I'm sure those few over there will be more than happy enough to pick it up. Saying so, he gestured towards Shintu and the others who were observing from 1,000 meters away. Yang Kai decisively stuffed the Star Emperor token into the Demon Mystic Tome and hid it in the deepest corner he could find. Guizhou saw this and nodded with satisfaction. Very good. N. Do you want this old master to take you out of here? No, I can find the direction to leave. Yang Kai declined. Guizhou didn't insist, grinning as he said, Fine, live well. This old master will head out first. Saying so, Guizhou transformed into a dark cloud and quickly flew off. Staring in the direction he left, Yang Kai wore a frown for a moment before shaking his head and chuckling before turning back towards Shintu and the others. The 5 others had been waiting quietly. Shintu and Yushi, who had been targeted by Guizhou, still had some lingering fear on their faces as just thinking about the old monster's mysterious means made a chill run up their backs. Brother Yang, did he leave? Shintu asked nervously. And he left. Yang Kai nodded. He really just left? Shintu was amazed. A moment ago, when Guizhou suddenly flew over to Yang Kai, all of them had thought there would be no escaping, but never had then anticipated that after a quick chat, Guizhou would actually leisurely depart. This was really too unexpected. He's really gone, Yang Kai repeated. You don't have to be so nervous. In fact, he's not all that bad, just a bit short-tempered. Hearing Yang Kai's reassurances, everyone finally breathed a sigh of relief and relaxed. Masters like him? Yushi smiled bitterly. They essentially don't care whether people like us live or die. Brother Yang, what did he say to you just now? It almost looked like you were having a pleasant chat. Shintu asked curiously. Nothing much, he thanked me, then reprimanding me. Yang Kai shrugged his shoulders, making up a story on the spot. He firmly believed that what he and Guizhou had just talked about wasn't known by these few. The fact that the Star Emperor token had fallen into his hands was something he obviously couldn't tell them. The value of this token was simply too great. Once news of its existence leaked out, it would surely stir up a storm of trouble. Scanning his surroundings for a moment, Yang Kai said, Let's go. We should leave this place too. After he said this though, everyone looked at him bitterly, with none of them moving. Leave here? How? We're still inside the chaotic abyss and neither our Sword Union's Chartmaster or Purple Star's Chartmaster are here. Yushi smiled bitterly. Baya quickly inspected her star shuttle and shook her head. My star chart has also been damaged and can't be used. Without a proper star chart, we won't be able to find the way out. The joy of just escaping from the floating continent was once again replaced by despair as an ugly look appeared on everyone's face. Oh, not a problem. Senior Guizhou gave me some directions a moment ago. Just follow me, Yang Kai said lightly. A bunch of surprised eyes instantly stared towards him. Shintu asking doubtfully, Brother Yang, you mean that Guizhou not only didn't kill you, keeping his word, but even kindly gave you directions? And Yang Kai nodded shamelessly. Huh? How did he suddenly become so cordial? Shintu still couldn't believe it. It doesn't make any sense. Well, it's the truth. Let's go. Yang Kai summoned his star shuttle which Shintu jumped up onto unceremoniously with a smile on his face. Brother Yang, I'll have to rely on you. I have no artifacts on me. Not a problem. The group of 6 people, riding 4-star shuttles, flew out as swift as the wind across the chaotic abyss. Yang Kai, while leading the way, immersed his consciousness into his knowledge sea to spy on the vast star chart above it to confirm their position. Doing so, he quickly realized the preciousness of this star chart. Because by using this star chart, he could easily find his current location and accurately plot a course to leave the chaotic abyss without suffering even the slightest interference from the chaotic flow of energy of this place. Yang Kai wasn't sure where Purple Star's chart master Wuxia had obtained this magical treasure, but now it was owned by him. He was even somewhat grateful to Wuxia, because if the latter hadn't died so close to him, he wouldn't have been able to obtain this star chart and gain knowledge of all the dangers and wonders throughout the star field. With such a star chart, Yang Kai could freely go anywhere he wanted to. Time passed by, and with the exception of Xintu, who kept chattering on endlessly, everyone else stayed relatively quiet. Baya would occasionally say a few words to Xintu, but when she discovered that he would go on and on without end, she quickly began ignoring him. After experiencing this series of hardships together, the other 5 in the group had unconsciously regarded Yang Kai as their hope and leader, choosing to believe in his decisions without any objections. Following Yang Kai, they flew through the chaotic abyss for 2 months. On this day, a different type of scenery finally appeared before them. It was a dense asteroid sea, with countless large and small asteroids seemingly blotting out the starry sky, each of them rapidly flying about under the influence of some inexplicable force. This asteroid sea was so vast that it was impossible to see where it began or ended. Upon seeing this giant asteroid sea, everyone's eyes couldn't help lighting up. "We can leave," Xintu shouted. "Haha! We can finally leave this forsaken place." "How do you know?" Yang Kai asked curiously. "The periphery of the chaotic abyss is surrounded by a giant asteroid sea. Everyone knows this," Xintu replied. Yang Kai glanced around and saw everyone nodding in agreement. "Seems I'm the only one who's ignorant." Yang Kai rubbed his nose. Xintu laughed, patting Yang Kai's shoulder in a friendly manner. "The place you came from is isolated after all, and you can slowly learn such things from now on." "Fuck. I'll never come anywhere near the chaotic abyss again in my life. This place is really just filled with disaster. How did a young master from Hung Luo Chamber of Commerce get caught by Lu Guichun in the first place? Where were your guards?" Yushi suddenly asked. "A young master from Hung Luo Chamber of Commerce?" Baya covered her red lips and exclaimed, her beautiful eyes flashing a strange light as she stared towards Xintu. Xintu gawked towards Yushi for a moment before grinning. "When did you see through my identity?" "I didn't, but I had my suspicions. Back on that floating continent, you urged Yang Kai to deliver a message to Hung Luo Chamber of Commerce. And your appearance, it's somewhat similar to a great man I once saw many years ago. And that senior was named Aio," Yushi said solemnly. "Aio? Hung Luo Chamber of Commerce President Aio." Baya called out in alarm this time as she stared at Xintu's incredulously. Even he Zao and he Miao couldn't help trembling in shock, neither of them having imagined that Xintu had such a profound background. Listening to this conversation, Yang Kai suddenly understood what kind of great family Xintu came from. From what he had learned from Xintu, Hung Luo Chamber of Commerce was one of the Starfield super forces, on the same level as Purple Star and Sword Union. However, unlike Purple Star and Sword Union, they were mainly focused on business, hence their title as a Chamber of Commerce. Their influence had proliferated throughout the entire star field and had ties to all its important forces. Hung Luo Chamber of Commerce occupied the stars with the most abundant resources in the star field, and could thus provide a lot of rare supplies to these forces, for a price. "You're the son of President Aio?" Baya stared at Xintu with amazement. "How come I've never heard of you before?" "I'm an illegitimate child. My name hasn't been publicly announced." Xintu grinned meaningfully. "You never having heard of me is natural." Yushi couldn't help coughing, her expression becoming slightly unnatural. "There are rumors that President Aio was once quite loose and created a number of emotional debts outside in his youth." Baya smiled bitterly. "If you have such an identity, why didn't you say anything to Senior Lu at the time? If he knew who you were, he would have rushed to receive you as a guest." How could he have thrown you into the starship's power room? At the mention of Lu Guichan, Shintu gnashed his teeth and grumbled. I did tell him, but he didn't believe me. If it wasn't for Brother Yang's timely help, I'm afraid I would already died back in your Purple Star starship. Everyone's expression became awkward, but after thinking about it for a moment, they understood why Lu Guichan wouldn't believe Shintu's words. President AIO was a famous man who had several sons, a number of whom were not known to the public, so if an unnamed youth suddenly claimed to be one of them, it was likely no one would believe him and would instead think he was just trying to borrow an identity to increase his status. Your luck is really terrible. Yang Kai looked at him sympathetically. What else could I have done? Shintu said indignantly. If this was really where I had died, it would have been too much of a tragedy. Seeing him grumble like this, He Miao couldn't help but giggle. The group of 6 soon dove into the boundless asteroid sea, and after a few days emerged on the other side. The sights in front of them also changed. There were now many more stars, some of them giving off great amounts of heat, some of them cold like ice, still others brimming with vitality, while a large number of them were completely desolate. We're out, Shintu shouted joyfully. For streaks of azure light came to a stop outside the chaotic abyss, and looking out at the familiar scene of the star field, with the exception of Yang Kai who was seeing this for the first time, everyone felt exhilarated, Shintu even shouting out loud to express his joy. Only after some time did everyone's mood slowly settle. Where are we? Baya turned her head and looked around, knowing that they were just outside the chaotic abyss, but unable to accurately determine their exact location. I recognize this place. I was captured not far from here. It's also not far from Water Moon Star, the Chamber of Commerce's main star. And, by star shuttle we should be able to arrive there in just over a month. Shintu explained. Water Moon Star? Yushi spoke thoughtfully. If you say so, then I can understand our general position. Sword Union Sword Star is probably in that direction, she said as she pointed to a certain spot in the starry sky. Would you like to come to Water Moon Star for a few days? Shintu looked around at the crowd and extended an invitation. After the life or death crisis they had all experienced together, a sense of camaraderie had formed between the people present. Yushi glanced over at Yang Kai and seemed to want to agree, but soon she wore a bitter look and shook her head. No, after losing a Saint King grade high-rank starship and hundreds of elite cultivators, I have to return to Sword Union as soon as possible, make a report. Shintu directed a look containing some sympathy towards her and said, if a day comes where you can't remain in Sword Union, Hong Luo Chamber of Commerce will welcome you. Although I don't have much status in the Chamber of Commerce compared to my brothers, recommending a few people to join is still possible. Yang Kai's thoughts turned quickly and soon understood that after Yushi returned to Sword Union she would likely face some harsh punishment. After all, the losses that had been suffered under her watch had been great, and she had even lost the all-important Star Emperor token. If such a day comes, I'll consider it, Yushi replied with a forced smile. She once again turned to Yang Kai, a complicated look appearing on her face. After a long silence, saying softly, Yang Kai, thank you. Thank you for bringing us master and disciples out from that prison and for returning to save us from the void. Hesitating again, she whispered, also, I'm sorry. Saying so, she bowed her head and sincerely apologized for all the unpleasantness that had transpired between them. Yang Kai nodded lightly, accepting her apology. We 3 will take our leave first then, Yushi said before turning in the direction of Sword Star and flying off. Yang Kai, you take care. I hope we can meet again someday. He Miao continually waved to Yang Kai, clearly somewhat reluctant to part. Take care. He Zhao nodded. You as well. Yang Kai smiled and waved, watching their 3 figures gradually drift away and disappear into the vast starry sky. They may not have, but you'll accept my invitation, right, Brother Yang? Shintu asked Yang Kai. Why not? I'm new to the star field in any case. I don't have anywhere in particular I'd like to go yet. Nor do I have place to stay. Yang Kai grinned. Coming with you to Water Moon Star sounds like as good a plan as any. Then I must thank Brother Yang in advance. If I really had to fly back to Water Moon Star all alone, I'd probably die somewhere along the road. Shintu said happily. Let's get going. Wait a moment, Yang Kai said, turning his head to look at Bai Ye and lightly saying, you should also leave. Where should I go? Bai Ye asked with surprise. I don't know, go wherever you want to go. You don't want to follow me in any case. Bai Ye's beautiful eyes lit up as she stared at Yang Kai in shock. You mean, I'm free? I told you back on that strange continent. After we leave, you and I would part ways. I don't have any intention of restricting your freedom. Then why did you? Bai Ye looked at Yang Kai in confusion, not understanding why he had collected her soul brand to control whether she lived or died if his plan was to just let her go in the end. That was your punishment. You and the others are different, the two of us had many grudges before. Lu Guichun I could discard to die in that place. But I decided to bring you out. However, you must pay an appropriate price, your soul brand. Yang Kai quickly said, I'll keep this brand with me to ensure you don't reveal any of my secrets, and to make certain you don't plot against me in the future. Who knows, a couple 100 years later, if I feel generous, I might return it to you. Bai Ye looked especially bitter as she stared at Yang Kai faintly, biting her red lips. What if you accidentally die? You best pray that I don't, that my longevity rivals that of the heavens themselves. Yang Kai said to her with complete seriousness. Bai Ye couldn't help smiling at this. Your appetite is too big. Forget it, in any case, I'm lucky enough to be able to escape from that place alive. If you need to keep my soul brand, then keep it. However, I don't really have any place to go now. I don't dare return to Purple Star. After so many people died, if I return alone, I'll definitely be questioned. Young Master Shin-Tu, could you introduce me to your Chamber of Commerce? Although I'm currently just a third-order saint, after living on that continent for so long and receiving its blessings, I feel that I am soon going to break through to the Saint King realm. With such a cultivation, it won't be a loss for you to recruit me. Shin-Tu thought about it for a moment and nodded. If you can break through to the Saint King realm, our Chamber of Commerce will be happy to accept you. Wonderful. Then I'll accompany you to Water Moon Star. I guarantee that after a month of retreat I will break through, Bai Ye declared happily before winking playfully to Yang Kai. It's your own choice to not cherish this servant. Don't regret letting me go later. Can your Chamber of Commerce accept this kind of woman? Yang Kai stared blankly at Shin-Tu's day. What's the problem? Shin-Tu asked in confusion. Yang Kai shook his head and said nothing. Bai Ye's cultivation technique was obviously an evil one that harvests yang to supplement yin. If such a woman appeared on Tongxian realm, she would definitely become a public enemy and would definitely be killed before she could mature. There was an abundance of self-righteous defenders of justice in Tongxian realm. Bai Ye was the type of woman these people most despised. However, it was obvious that Shin-Tu didn't care much about it and was actually willing to introduce her to the Chamber of Commerce. The star field was quite different from Tongxian realm. They didn't place a heavy emphasis on good or evil, but were instead more focused on strong or weak. And just what kind of woman am I? Bai Ye asked unhappily. After confirming that Yang Kai really had no plans to restrict her freedom, she immediately relaxed and longer acted reserved towards him. Could you not be clear about what kind of woman you are? Yang Kai cast her a sidelong glance. I'm flirtatious and fickle, and I do not try to suppress my desires. All you men act this way, why can't women too? Bai Ye grumbled with dissatisfaction. Good, let's go. I can't wait to return to Water Moon Star to rest. Shin-Tu cut in before pointing the way out to Yang Kai, who immediately urged his star shuttle forward. Along the way, Bai Ye's carefree laughter rang out frequently, as if she was a bird that had just escaped from its cage, her face full of smiles. Yang Kai soon discovered that the star shuttle she was riding was faster than his own. This was not just because he was carrying Shin-Tu with him, but rather because her star shuttle was of a higher grade. This increased Yang Kai's determination to purchase a higher-grade star shuttle after they reached Water Moon Star, because he felt he would be spending a lot of time flying through the starry sky in the future, and a good star shuttle would save him a lot of time. Shin-Tu knew the region around Water Moon Star very well, so, under his guidance, the group of 3 people managed to avoid many dangers and quickly arrive at their destination. One day, a giant 5-colored star appeared in front of the group of 3, one that exuded a strong vitality and overflowed with rich world energy. Standing atop his star shuttle, Yang Kai's eyes lit up as he understood that this was the water-moon star Shin-Tu spoke of, the primary star of Hung Luo Chamber of Commerce. The entire star was covered in a layer of clouds, and from the star field above one could vaguely make out various mainlands and oceans. It was even possible to see some dense groupings of buildings in various locations. Among those clusters of buildings, countless black specks flew about naturally. These black specks were cultivators. Yang Kai's spirits were roused as realized he had finally reached the true star field. After leaving Tongxian realm, he had been wandering aimlessly, exploring vast swaths of the starry sky, but he hadn't seen much worthy of note until now, nor had he come across any cultivation stars where other people gathered. Water Moon Star was his first stop. He couldn't help feeling a little excited. Fly over there. Shin-Tu pointed towards a certain spot. My palace is in that direction. Yang Kai followed his directions and continued flying forward. After a short time, the group of three broke through the thick clouds and descended towards Water Moon Star. A force of attraction came from the star that pulled the star shuttle towards it. But this force wasn't too strong and Yang Kai could easily resist it. Upon penetrating the cloud layer, the world suddenly brightened and everything on Water Moon Star became visible. Yang Kai behaved like a country bumpkin who had just entered the city for the first time, looking every which way, appreciating the new sights and sounds. Seeing him act like this, Baiya and Shin-Tu exchanged a glance and couldn't help laughing. Both of them understood that Yang Kai had come from a lower world and had probably never experienced such a magnificent sight before. Amidst the sky, many blue streaks of light flew back and forth. Naturally, these were cultivators hurrying along with the help of their star shuttles. Unlike in Tongxian realm, where only Yang Kai possessed such an artifact, star shuttles zipping around were a common sight on Water Moon Star. Shin-Tu continued guiding them casually while allowing Yang Kai to take in the view. Along the way, the trio passed through many majestic cities in which a myriad of races peacefully coexisted. Yang Kai saw cultivators from the human race, demon race, monster race, and even the horn race from great demon gods' memories, and that was just the start. There were many other races present he couldn't name. All of these cultivators lived together in one place without any kind of apparent racial discrimination. How can a single force manage and govern multiple cultivation stars? Yang Kai was puzzled. When he initially became the Holy Lord of Nine Heavens' Holy Land, he had been busy all day long and managing its situation had consumed a massive amount of his time and energy. He couldn't even imagine how difficult it would be for him if all of Tongxian realm had been placed under his command. Yang Kai couldn't imagine how a force's leader could manage even one cultivation star, much less several of them. Their schedule would probably not have a single free moment of time. When would they even find time to cultivate? Layers upon layers of management, Shin-Tu explained with a smile. There are high-level managers, then mid-level managers, then low-level managers, each one responsible for the level below them. The ones at the top don't need to deal with everything. Hearing this explanation, Yang Kai realized he had just asked a stupid question and immediately kept quiet. Yang Kai had never been in or reached such a position before, nor had he ever sought out such a position, so he felt such things were somewhat asinine. But people seek higher heights just like water flows down to the sea. Ultimately, this was just a different method of reaching the top. Beasts had pack leaders while empires had monarchs. Standing atop a mountain, one would be able to enjoy the unique scenery and have the ability to command the subjects beneath them. But this wasn't something Yang Kai concerned himself with. After an hour or so, a group of buildings that covered a vast area appeared in front of the trio, and Shin-Tu instructed Yang Kai to land. The designs of these buildings were strange, something Yang Kai had never seen before. Many of them were like giant spires that stood thousands of meters high and were clustered all together. We're here. Everywhere within a 3,000-kilometer radius is my personal territory. Shin-Tu leapt off the star shuttle and spread out his arms, breathing in the air in an exaggerated manner, a cheerful look upon his face. Yang Kai and Baiya also retrieved their star shuttles and landed behind him. Yang Kai released his divine sense to examine his surroundings, and was amazed to discover that there were several hundred cultivators in the area. These cultivators had varying cultivations, some of them not very high at all, only at the transcendent realm, immortal ascension boundary, or even true element boundary. There were also a number of powerful auras comparable to that of Yuxi and Lu Guichun. Saint King Realm Masters. Yang Kai understood that there were a lot of masters in the star field, but even these masters had to grow step by step from the initial element stage to Qi transformation stage, separation and reunion boundary, true element boundary, immortal ascension boundary, etc. Cultivation was a continuous process of breaking through one's limits in order to obtain more and more tyrannical strength. However, in order to escape the bounds of the cultivation star they were born in and travel to the starry sky, they had to at least reach the Saint Realm, so none of those Yang Kai saw out amongst the stars was weak. Beneath the Saint Realm, even with the protection of a star shuttle, most didn't dare risk traversing the starry sky. Even brief contact with the power of the starry sky would be enough to kill them. Such cultivators had to shelter themselves inside great starships to ensure their safety. It seemed that because of the arrival of the group of three, the cultivators in this place had become alert, and a middle-aged man in a black suit quickly appeared from inside. After seeing Shan-Tu though, this man couldn't help wearing a happy expression and shouting, "Young Master Shan-Tu, you've come back?" "I've returned." Shan-Tu nodded at him and grinned. "Has anything happened here since I left?" The middle-aged man shook his head and said, "Nothing of importance, but President AIO has been looking for you since 6 months ago. Because young master suddenly disappeared, President flew into a rage for quite some time." Hearing this, Shan-Tu paled, shrinking his neck. "Did father come looking for me? What did he say?" The middle-aged man shook his head. "President didn't say anything. He only ordered that you see him as soon as you returned." Shan-Tu's expression became bitter as he muttered, "I'm finished. Death might be avoidable, but father will definitely peel a layer of skin at least." As the two of them spoke, Yang Kai silently observed and quickly determined that this middle-aged man and the few masters hidden around this compound were subordinates of Hung Luo Chamber of Commerce sent to protect Shin Tuesday. The middle-aged man was also observing Yang Kai and Bai Ye. He didn't show much reaction to Yang Kai, but upon seeing Bai Ye, he wore an obviously disgruntled expression. He seemed to be able to see at a glance that Bai Ye was a promiscuous woman and probably thought that she had seduced Shan-Tu into accepting her. "Young master, these two are..." The middle-aged man continued to stare at Yang Kai and Bai Ye. "Right, this guy is Yang Kai." Shan-Tu wrapped his arm around Yang Kai's shoulder in a friendly manner and said, "He is a life-or-death brother I met while outside. And Uncle Jialong should regard him as my life's benefactor." "Young master's benefactor?" The middle-aged man named Jialong wore a stunned expression but didn't ask anything, quickly cupping his fists to Yang Kai and saying, "Many thanks to little brother for your care of my young master. Young master has been stubborn and disobedient since he was young, and has probably caused little brother much trouble. I hope little brother can be broad-minded. Senior is too polite. Shan-Tu and I both helped one another." Yang Kai smiled humbly. Jialong gently nodded, showing a satisfied look upon his face. "This woman?" Shan-Tu pointed to Bai Ye. She was originally a purple star cultivator, but now wishes to join our Chamber of Commerce. Please arrange things for her Uncle Long." "Purple star." Jialong frowned. "Her strength is a bit low. As long as I can enter secluded retreat, I will be able to break through to the Saint King realm within half a month," Bai Ye hurriedly declared, clearly anxious to obtain a place to take shelter. "Half a month to break through to the Saint King realm?" Jialong's thick brow rose slightly. "If you become a Saint King, our Chamber of Commerce will gladly welcome you, and you can enter secluded retreat here for the time being." Saying so, he gently clapped his hands and a guard immediately flew out from the palace and landed beside him. "Lead this young lady to a cultivation room and provide her with some saint crystals and pill," Jialong said. "Yes. Thank you, young master Shan-Tu." "Thank you, senior Jialong." Bai Ye's pretty face showed a happy look as she bowed elegantly to Shan-Tu before turning to Yang Kai. "I hope we meet again." Yang Kai nodded lightly. After Bai Ye was led away, Shan-Tu enthusiastically ushered Yang Kai into the palace. The middle-aged cultivator called Jialong followed suit. The guards and maidservants they met along the way all bowed and saluted respectfully. "Brother, I'm gonna go bathe and change, you should do so as well. If there is anything you'd like to talk about, we can do so a bit later." Inside the palace, Shintu said casually, "Don't think of yourself as an outsider here." "Good." Yang Kai accepted politely. Shintu smiled before reaching out and wrapping his arms around two young girls before walking towards the inside of the building while smirking. "Young Master Yang, this way please." Another maidservant with beautiful looks and a graceful figure walked up to Yang Kai and beckoned for him to follow her. Behind her, Yang Kai walked through the palace. Although Shintu had said he was an illegitimate son of President Aio whose existence wasn't disclosed to the public, from the extent of the territory he was given to the staff he was provided with, it was obvious that Shintu did not have a low position in President Aio's heart. If that were not so, there wouldn't be several Saint King realm cultivators acting as bodyguards in this place. Nor would Shintu have been granted dominion over a 3,000-kilometer radius piece of land. Yang Kai wasn't interested in inquiring about other people's affairs though and simply followed behind the maidservant, soon arriving at a large room. Inside this room was a grand bed covered with light pink translucent curtains, giving it a warm aura. The room was filled with flowers, and a short distance away there was a massive bath made from the purest white jade. This bath was filled with hot water that gave off a light steamy mist. Colorful flower petals floated atop the bath, and beside it were a number of beautiful women wearing revealing negligee. When these women saw Yang Kai walk in, they all smiled and bowed politely. The light mist surrounding them added an element of mystery to their beauty. The white steam lightly wet the thin clothes they wore and caused them to cling to their seductive curves, emphasizing their amazing body lines. Yang Kai was stunned, not having expected to suddenly encounter such a scene, his pulse increasing slightly as his breathing became a bit heavy as he stared towards these young women. Their ages didn't seem too high, and each of them had perfect, snow-white skin that was full of rosy, seductive luster. They had outstanding appearances and a variety of temperaments, as well as charming smiles and enchanting bodies that could fascinate any man. To Yang Kai's obvious gaze, some of them responded boldly with hot eyes while others showed bashful appearances, covering their most sensitive places with their hands in an alluring manner. That Shintu actually lives such an indulgent lifestyle? Yang Kai couldn't help commenting to himself. "Does young master need your servant to help you remove your clothes?" The maidservant who had led him here, seeing Yang Kai freeze up, showed an intoxicating smile and couldn't help calling out softly. Yang Kai took back his gaze and shook his head before asking, "Was all this arranged by your young master?" "It was this servant who made these arrangements," the maidservant replied. "But it was in lines with young Master Shen's intentions. He made a point of mentioning that young master is an honored guest, so this servant made sure to provide the highest level of reception possible. And young master is only the second person to enjoy this level of service." "Oh? Have you received someone like this once before?" "Yes," the maidservant nodded. "But young master may rest assured that these sisters all still possess their innocence and have not been tarnished in any way. They are also very happy to serve young Master Shintu's guests." "Why would they be very happy?" Yang Kai asked curiously. "Because young Master Shintu has a graciousness to them. Each of them volunteered to become a maidservant here. No one has forced them to do anything. Before arranging for them to come here, this servant has consulted with and received each of their agreement." Yang Kai once again looked towards the young women in front of him and discovered that they truly didn't show any signs of unwillingness, understanding that the maidservant who led him here was telling the truth. "Is young master dissatisfied with them? If so, your servant can replace them. I will certainly be able to find one to your liking." "No need." Yang Kai shook his head. Then, Yang Kai thought about it for a moment, then grinned. "Good, since Shintu is willing to show such kind intentions, to refuse would be impolite." Saying so, he calmly removed his robes and leapt into the bath. The women standing next to the bath all smiled happily and slipped into the water after him, gracefully swimming over to Yang Kai and taking the initiative to press their tender bodies onto his, fully revealing their beautiful figures as they attentively served and bathed him. The young girls inside the bath were all innocent maidens, so although each of them had received training in this area before, Seeing how it was their first time going into battle, it was inevitable that their actions were a bit clumsy, but it was just right for Xianxia. Relaxing inside the bath, he leaned up against its edge and closed his eyes, allowing the girls to wash every part of his body. The maidservant who had led Xianxia here walked over with a basket of flower petals, and using her jade hand lightly sprinkled them into the bath while lightly explaining, "These soul-soothing flowers can help nourish one's spiritual energy as well as strengthen one's physique while they bathe, and it can also help enhance a man's ability in that regard." Saying so, her face went bright red with embarrassment. Suddenly, Xianxia gently pulled her into the bath, causing her to let out a yelp of surprise, the warm water soaking her clothes. When she straightened herself up and gently brushed the water from her face, she shot an embarrassed look towards Xianxia. Her wet clothes now stuck to her body, emphasizing her pair of rich jade peaks which were grander than any of the other girls present. Her body exuding a mature and graceful charm her younger cohorts lacked. "Do you no longer possess your innocence?" Xianxia smiled towards her. The maidservant's face went redder and she shyly nodded. This servant has already been deflowered, so she is no longer qualified to serve young master in this regard. Whether or not you have such qualifications is for me to decide. Her beautiful eyes brightened as she elegantly removed her wet clothes, then plunged into the water and disappeared. Soon, Xianxia revealed a blissful look. Inside a grand hall, instruments played while rows of beautiful young women sang and danced. Behind a long table filled with precious foods and fine wines, Xianxia and Xianxia sit side by side while drinking and enjoying themselves. A progression of maidservants brought new delicacies to the table frequently. Xianxia didn't recognize most of these dishes, but he could easily tell that each of them was exuding potent energy fluctuations. These foods weren't just capable of satisfying one's appetite, but would also serve as nourishment for one's cultivation. Xianxia did not stand on ceremony and ate and drank in a relaxed manner. The middle-aged cultivator named Jialong stood not far away, and observing the manner in which Xianxia received Xianxia, serving him the finest of food and wine, he realized that this second-order Saint Realm youth had an incredibly high status in his young master's heart. He couldn't help but wonder what kind of skill this young man possessed to warrant Xianxia treating him so seriously. The maidservant who had served Xianxia before came up and leaned over to Xianxia, whispering a few words into his ear before shooting a glance over at Xianxia. Her cheeks dyed bright red, and then withdrawing. Xianxia couldn't help grinning, a meaningful look appearing on his face, but he didn't bring this matter up, instead turning to Xianxia and asking, "Brother Yang, do you have any ideas about what you're going to do next?" "Not yet." Xianxia shook his head. Xianxia knew that he had just arrived in the star field and perhaps didn't have any particular destination or plans in mind as of yet. As such, he was seriously thinking about trying to recruit Xianxia. Water Moon Star was Xianxia's first stop in the star field, and Xianxia had a good relationship with him, so he believed that if Xianxia stayed with him for a time, he would be able to persuade him to join Hung Luo Chamber of Commerce. After the series of events they had experienced together, Xianxia had become fully aware of Xianxia's ability and potential and knew that if given enough time he would become a truly terrifying master. Well, in that case, there's no need to be anxious. You can live here for now with your good brother, and when you think of something you want to do you can let me know. Xianxia didn't openly invite him to stay, and instead left the decision up to Xianxia. After all, he couldn't treat him like a subordinate. "Good. When the time comes I'll let you know." Xianxia smiled as he continued to watch the group of dancing girls perform, admiring their graceful postures. After a couple of hours, when they were both fully satiated, Xianxia stumbled back to his room thoroughly drunk to rest while Xianxia was also taken to a room under the guidance of a maid. This room was quite large and was located nearly 1,000 meters off the ground. Standing inside the room and staring out the large transparent windows, Xianxia could see the lights of the city down below as well as all the various cultivators going about their business. Watching all this, he suddenly felt a sense of loneliness. When he arrived in Tongxian realm from the Great Han Dynasty many years ago, he hadn't experienced such feelings, because the Great Han Dynasty and Tongxian realm were relatively close to one another. Now though, he had traveled far out into the star field, so far he didn't even know where Tongxian realm was relative to him. The feeling that he was all alone out here suddenly weighed down on him. His heart was also filled with various thoughts and concerns. Suddenly, thinking of something, his eyes lit up and he hurried over to the bed and sat down cross-legged, immersing his consciousness into his knowledge sea. His soul avatar appeared above the flaming ocean. From there, Xianxia looked up at the giant star chart hanging over his knowledge sea and guided his divine sense through it in an attempt to locate Tong Xian realm. This star chart was extraordinarily detailed and seemed to have depicted the entire star field as well as every single motion of each and every large and small star following some inexplicable law. The changes that occurred here were really happening in the star field. The real-time situation of the star field was shown here. Considering how detailed it was, Xianxia figured he would be able to find Tong Xian realm as well. His divine sense leapt from one star to the next as Xianxia backtraced the approximate route he had taken from Tong Xian realm. After an hour, though, he couldn't help revealing a weary look as the spiritual energy in his knowledge sea had been exhausted. Arriving at this state, Xianxia had no choice but to stop and restore himself. After recovering, he started again from where he had left off, but even after repeating this process several times, Xianxia was unable to locate Tong Xian realm. However, his understanding of the arrangement of the stars in the star field had increased greatly, and he had learned about the existence of several dangerous regions he should avoid in the future. Xianxia also found that he had still underestimated the profoundness of this star chart. Even after so many repeated explorations, he was unable to even determine the full scope of this star chart. It was as if it was endless. Spending an entire night studying it had only resulted in him exploring a tiny fraction of the star field. Xianxia realized that his strength wasn't high enough. If his cultivation realm was higher, this investigation would become faster and easier. Opening his eyes, Xianxia was greeted by a bright sunrise. He had temporarily given up the idea of exploring the star chart and searching for Tong Xian realm until his strength grew to a certain extent. A knock came from the door at that moment and Xianxia casually said to enter. When the door was pushed open, a familiar maidservant stood at the entrance, bowed gracefully and smiled towards him. Young Master Yang, young Master Shin Tu asked me to inform you that he was summoned by the president and may not be able to return for short time. He also said that you may relax here to your heart's content while waiting for him. I understand. Xianxia nodded lightly. The maidservant didn't rush to leave, her red lips pursing slightly as she directed a bashful yet somewhat expectant look towards Xianxia. Does young Master Yang have any other demands? Her meaning was obvious. If I have any demands, I'll inform you. Xianxia smiled back at her. The maidservant's face blushed pink as she gently nodded and closed the door. After she left, Xianxia sat on the bed and furrowed his brow. With Shun Tu not here, he was at somewhat of a loss as to what to do, and the feeling of idleness was somehow unpleasant to him. Tossing a pill into his mouth, he began to meditate while restoring himself. A moment later, he suddenly remembered something he wanted to do. Replace his star shuttle. The star shuttle he was currently using was something he had discovered a long time ago in the starry sky along with Li Rong. Back on Tong Xian realm, his star shuttle gave him an absolute advantage over everyone else in terms of speed, but out here in the star field, his star shuttle was nothing but a broken, outdated model. Even the one Bai Ye was using was far better than his. In addition, he had to purchase some precious ores. Guizhou had reminded him specifically to raise the 2 pitch-black round stones in his demon mystic tome well, and that they would eventually give him a pleasant surprise. And to raise the 2 pitch-black round stones, what was needed was high-grade ores. Xianxia slightly regretted that he had forgotten to ask Guizhou what exactly these pitch-black round stone were before he had left. In the end, his relationship with Guizhou had eased significantly, so if he had asked at the time, it was likely he could have gotten an answer, but at that time Xianxia had been too shocked by the Star Emperor token to remember this point. Considering all this, Xianxia stood up and strode out. Arriving at the bottom of the Grand Tower, Xianxia was about to leave Shin Tu's palace when the middle-aged cultivator called Jialong suddenly appeared, smiled and asked, "Does little brother want to go out?" "I want to buy something." Xianxia nodded. "Buy something?" Jialong suddenly grinned. "What does the little brother want to buy?" If it is convenient, can you inform me? I want to purchase a better star shuttle and some ores. A star shuttle and some ores? Jialong didn't ask what Yang Kai wanted with ores and instead said, "Little brother is new here and probably not too familiar with the various stores nearby. If you can wait a moment, I'll arrange for someone to accompany you." Yang Kai smiled happily hearing this. Then I'll have to trouble you for that. His proposal really solved one of Yang Kai's worries. Little brother is too polite. Young Master Shin Tu said before he departed to meet any request young Master Yang made. "I will certainly not neglect an honored guest such as yourself." Saying so, he took out a communication-type artifact and poured his divine sense into it. After a moment, he took back the compass and smiled towards Yang Kai. "Please wait a moment. Someone will soon come over." Yang Kai nodded and waited. A short time later, a man flew over from afar and landed in front of Yang Kai and Jialong, raising his eyebrows and asking, "Need something?" This man had bulging muscles, a wild temperament, and a beast-like aura about him. He also had thick facial hair that made him look like a mad lion. Monster race. Yang Kai was immediately able to infer this man's race from his appearance and the energy fluctuations he gave off. Because he was part of the monster race, he exuded a thick monster chi from his body. Outside Shintu's residence, Jialong pointed to Yang Kai and said, "Young Master Yang wants to purchase something. Escort him to wherever he wants to go and protect his safety." Young Master Shintu's guest? The monster race master turned to look at Yang Kai before gently nodding. No problem. Obviously, he had also heard about Yang Kai's existence. After all, Shintu rarely brought people to his palace, but each one he did was always a valued guest. "Please come with me." The monster race man greeted Yang Kai. "Thanks in advance." Yang Kai smiled slightly. The two of them flew off together, with Yang Kai following behind the monster race master who seemed a bit uncommunicative. Yang Kai had to take the initiative to ask, "Friend, how may I address you?" This monster race master was definitely a Saint King, because Yang Kai felt a certain amount of pressure when facing him. Only Saint King realm masters could cause Yang Kai to feel this way now. However, since he as Shintu's subordinate, Yang Kai calling him friend was by no means disrespectful. "Young Master Yang is too polite. You may call me Xue Tong." "Xue Tong." Yang Kai raised his brow. "Which monster beast do you descend from?" "Blood-eyed bristled mane lion," Xue Tong explained casually. Yang Kai noticed that Xue Tong's eyes indeed had a slightly reddish hue to them, but this was obviously just his normal state. Once Xue Tong began to fight, Yang Kai was fairly certain his eyes would become blood red and his ferocious nature would take over, causing his power to soar. "You're obviously from the human race, so why do I feel the existence of monster Yuan Qi from you?" Xue Tong frowned at Yang Kai. "And the bloodline aura is incredibly pure, far nobler than my own, almost as if it belongs to a great monster emperor. Did you have some kind of fortuitous encounter related to my monster race before?" Something like that." Yang Kai smiled slightly. The golden dragon and ice phoenix tattoos on his body truly contained traces of monster chi, so it was only normal for Xue Tong to have noticed them. On top of that, the golden dragon and ice phoenix were both apex existences amongst monster beasts, even if one took the entire star field into consideration. Xue Tong still didn't say much, but possibly because he sensed this monster Yuan Qi from Yang Kai, his demeanor became friendlier. A short time later, the two men arrived inside a grand city where blue-green streaks of light shuttled overhead. Obviously, these were cultivators hurrying along on their star shuttles. Xue Tong walked forward with Yang Kai while asking, "What do you want to buy?" "A good star shuttle and some rare ores," Yang Kai replied. "A simple request." Xue Tong thought about it for a moment before proposing, "In that case, do you want to buy it here or from somewhere else?" "What's the difference?" Yang Kai asked. "This city is a rather small one on Water Moonstar, so the quality of things isn't too high. If you want a good star shuttle, I suggest you get at least a Saint King grade high-rank one. You should just barely be able to fully utilize such a star shuttle and you won't need to replace it for quite some time." "Then I'll go with a Saint King grade high-rank star shuttle." Yang Kai nodded. "Then we'll have to travel to a different city, one about 30,000 kilometers from here where they have better things for sale. That's a bit far, Xianxia frowned. Even by star shuttle, flying 30,000 kilometers would take some time. In response, though, Xuetong smiled mysteriously. It's not that far. We'll be able to arrive there immediately. Xianxia was puzzled but did not ask much, just following behind Xuetong as they made their way through the city. A short time later, the two came to a certain building, but before entering it, Xianxia noticed a strange energy fluctuation coming from inside. Carefully investigating this, he immediately understood what the fluctuation was. It was actually void energy. He couldn't understand why there would be void energy here. Outside the building were a large number of Hung Luo Chamber of Commerce guards, and when Xuetong arrived, they all saluted, seemingly recognizing him as one of Shin Tu's protectors. Xuetong walked straight inside. After passing through several gates, the void energy fluctuations became more and more apparent. Arriving at the innermost room, Xianxia's eyes couldn't help shrinking as he called out in surprise, "A space array?" In front of him, there was a large array that was quite similar to the one that Guizhou had created back on the floating continent. The only difference was that this one was much more meticulously crafted. The space array Guizhou had arranged much rougher and was lacking in detail in several locations. The space array in front of Xianxia now though was of much higher quality, without any shortcomings. In the middle of the big array, there was a mirror-like object covered with a thick layer of space spirit crystal. At the base of this mirror, there were a number of grooves which were obviously designed to accept Saint crystals. Can this thing be used? Xianxia stared stunned at Xuetong. Naturally, we can use this space array to reach a bigger city. Wasn't the ability to arrange such arrays lost to history? Xianxia revealed a strange look. Indeed, these space arrays are relics from ancient times and are actually present on many cultivation stars. No one knows when these space arrays were laid out and everyone can only use them. There are some great masters who are able to understand some small portion of their mysteries, but that's not something us common folk can do. Listening to his explanation, Xianxia suddenly understood that this space array should be a remnant from a long-past era. With such a thing, is it possible to easily travel between cultivation stars? Xianxia asked excitedly. He understood just how far it was between cultivation stars. A single round trip would cost a cultivator a great deal of time, but with a space array it would be different. The journey would then only take a moment. Xuetong smiled awkwardly and shook his head. That's impossible. All space arrays can transmit people at most 100,000 kilometers. The space arrays on each cultivation star can only connect to others on the same cultivation star. Saying so, he took out a few pieces of high-quality Saint crystal from his space ring and placed them carefully into the grooves at the base of the mirror before beckoning to Xianxia. This way, please. Xianxia walked over and stood side by side with him. Xuetong then activated the space array and the mirror in front of the two rippled like the surface of a lake that one had thrown a pebble into. At the same time, the energy inside the Saint crystals inserted at the base was quickly drained. After a while, the mirror seemed to shatter and revealed a black portal. Go! Xuetong shouted before stepping forward first. Xianxia didn't hesitate and followed right behind him. Unlike when he tore space himself, Xianxia didn't feel anything in particular after using the space array. He simply stepped past where the mirror was and then arrived at a different place. Looking back, there was another space array behind him, but it was definitely not the same one as before. Xianxia immediately understood what had happened. When activated, two space arrays in two different locations were able to form a kind of temporary void corridor, allowing people to travel a few tens of thousands of kilometers in an instant. And these space arrays were all the property of Hung Luo Chamber of Commerce. Xuetong grinned. These space arrays are convenient, but no cultivator will use them too often. Why is that? The power of space is too mysterious. Using space arrays to travel back and forth too frequently may cause some unnecessary harm. As long as one isn't proficient in the Tao of space in general, they will only use these arrays once every few months. Most of them they will use their star shuttle instead. I understand. Xianxia smiled. So we'll be flying back after we're done here, right? Exactly. Xuetong nodded. Let's go. I'll take you to a good place where a certain grandmaster refines star shuttles. He's the best in his craft in the entire water-moon star. You should be able to find a star shuttle that suits you in his shop. Hearing this, Xianxia suddenly became a bit excited. This city was indeed much more prosperous than the previous one. A variety of shops lined the streets and countless cultivators seemed to flow in an endless river between them. These people belonged to various different forces. Xianxia saw some Sword Union and Purple Star cultivators here, as well as many other from forces he didn't recognize. Because this was the home star of the Hung Luo Chamber of Commerce, it was also the busiest transaction hub in the entire star field. All the major forces scattered throughout the star field would establish branches here, so if they needed any kind of resources or supplies, they could purchase them from Hung Luo Chamber of Commerce and in some cases even have them delivered by them too. Many starships would set sail from the massive cities on Water-Moon Star every day, their huge figures flying off into the starry sky and gradually disappearing. Xianxia was thoroughly astonished by the prosperity of this place and couldn't help feeling a subtle sense of excitement. With Shui Tong in the lead, the pair soon arrived at a shop with several floors. As soon as they entered, someone came up and greeted them, cupping their fists and smiling. "Sir Shui Tong, it has been too long. Does young Master Shin too require something?" Shui Tong shook his head. "It is young Master's guest who wishes to purchase a star shuttle. Take us to the 3rd floor." The shop assistant glanced over at Xianxia and immediately nodded. "Please come this way." Xianxia took a quick look around as he followed behind the shop assistant and discovered that this shop exclusively sold star shuttles. Each star shuttle was put up on display and many cultivators would crowd around, bargaining back and forth with the shop staff. From time to time, someone would walk out with a satisfied look. "This shop belongs to our Chamber of Commerce. The St. King grade high-rank star shuttles you want are sold on the 3rd floor. The grades on the 1st and 2nd floors are below that standard," Shui Tong explained to Xianxia. Xianxia gently nodded. He had also noticed that the star shuttles on this floor were only of spirit grade and the cultivators who were purchasing them weren't very strong. Most of them just transcendents while a few of them were saints. Spirit grade star shuttles, whether in terms of speed or performance, were the lowest of quality. Such star shuttles couldn't even travel out into the star field. They were simply unable to withstand the ambient destructive energy of the star field. Seeing the shop assistant eagerly leading Xianxia and Shui Tong towards the stairs, the other customers inside the shop cast them curious glances, wondering which great person had suddenly arrived. The 2nd floor was filled with Saint-grade star shuttles. The energy fluctuations coming from these star shuttles were obviously stronger than those on the 1st floor as well as the one Xianxia owned. Many cultivators were present on this level, keeping all the shop assistants very busy. The group of 3 didn't stop on the 2nd floor. Arriving on the 3rd floor, the shop hand stopped and smiled. "Please have a look around. If you see anything you like, just inform me." Xianxia nodded and began walking around the various displays on the 3rd floor. The star shuttles here varied greatly in length, size, and even shape. It seemed that they were each designed to meet different requirements of various customers. The artifact refiners here especially made each star shuttle unique, but that didn't affect their performance in the slightest. The strength of the cultivators that came to buy star shuttles on the 3rd floor was obviously quite different as well. The cultivators that were wandering around in front of the displays were saints or saint kings, each of them possessing certain status and strength. However, no matter how strong they were, each of them behaved respectfully. No one dared to make trouble inside one of Hung Luo Chamber of Commerce's stores, especially not on the Chamber of Commerce's home star. The stores of this star were the foundation of the Chamber of Commerce, so they would definitely not allow anyone to affect it negatively. Xianxia walked around slowly, browsing the St. King grade high-rank star shuttles. Whenever he found one he was interested in, he would ask the shop assistant to take it down so he could inspect it closer. Shui Tong followed behind him and noticed that even after quite some time Xianxia wasn't able to find one he wanted. So he couldn't help but say, "If you are willing to wait, you can let the artifact refiners here custom make one for you." "How long would that take?" Xianxia turned back and asked. "Even if you have a good relationship with young Master Shin too, it would take at least a month or 2. Xianxia knit his brow and shook his head. "Forget it. There's no need to go through that much trouble. In any case, when my strength grows to a certain extent, it will need to be replaced. I might as well just purchase one that's ready-made. Saying so, his gaze suddenly landed on a sleek, sea serpent-like star shuttle, and he said to the clerk, "Let me see that one." The shop assistant nodded and quickly retrieved it. Holding the star shuttle in his hands, Xianxia tried circulating his strength through it, and his eyes soon shined. When he circulated his Saint Chi through the star shuttle, it flowed incredibly smoothly, far more so than with any of the previous models he had tried. Because individual artifact refiners would use different materials and different spirit arrays, there were inevitably slight differences between each star shuttle. As such, whether a star shuttle could perfectly accept the strength of a certain cultivator would become an indicator of its suitability for that individual. The star shuttle Xianxia was currently holding was undoubtedly quite suitable for his Saint Chi. Not planning on continuing to search for something better, Xianxia nodded and said, "This one is good. How much does it cost?" When the shop assistant heard this, he first shot a glance towards Xuetong. Seeing this, Xuetong simply said, "Just state the normal price." "Yes." The clerk nodded and said, "St. King grade high-rank star shuttles generally cost 10,000 high-rank St. Crystals, with the price varying slightly from model to model. The star shuttle honored guest is currently holding is the highest quality one on the 3rd floor, so it is valued at 12,000 high-rank St. Crystals." 12,000. Xianxia frowned, suddenly discovering that he was somewhat ignorant of the value of St. Crystals here. He didn't know whether 12,000 high-rank St. Crystals was a lot of wealth or not. As such, he glanced over at Xuetong for help. Xuetong smiled and said to the clerk, "Charge it to young Master Shintu's account. We will settle it another day." "Yes. No need. I have enough St. Crystals on hand," Xianxia said. "I'll pay for it myself." Xianxia indeed had a lot of St. Crystals with him, all of them being acquired from the cultivators of Purple Star and Sword Union who had been stranded on the floating continent. There was more than enough to pay for this star shuttle. Since he could afford it, he didn't want to accept a favor from Shintu. The shop assistant couldn't help looking to Xuetong for guidance. In response, Xuetong's eyes flickered slightly, but he didn't say anything and just nodded. The shop assistant relaxed and smiled. "Please come with me." Follow him down to the 1st floor. Xianxia spent some time to pull out enough St. Crystals from his demon mystic tome and settle accounts with the shop assistant, who then respectfully delivered him and Xuetong to the door. Outside the store, Xuetong led Xianxia to several other stores to purchase some rare ores. On Water Moonstar, you could literally purchase anything you wanted. Assuming you have enough St. Crystals, one could even purchase a starship. The starships refined by Hung Luo Chamber of Commerce were the fastest and highest quality in the entire star field, so many forces would place orders for them from Water Moonstar. Xianxia, of course, didn't have any ideas about such things, as he knew he currently didn't have anywhere near enough wealth to purchase a starship. He didn't know the value of St. Crystals here and had no concept of what was cheap and what was expensive, so he could only follow behind Xuetong to purchase ores in bulk. The ores Xianxia chose were all St. King grade, and he continued buying them until he only had a few hundred pieces of St. Crystal left in reserve. Inside the Demon Mystic Tome, there were now a ton of rare ores, which Xianxia placed next to the 2 pitch-black round stones, allowing them to absorb their mineral essences. Seemingly because Xianxia did not let Shintu pay for his purchases, Xuetong found him more and more pleasing to the eye. Clearly, he felt that this young man was very principled and did not make friends with his young master to take advantage of his status. After finishing with the shopping spree, Xuetong invited Xianxia to have a meal at the most luxurious restaurant in the city. The next day, the 2 men departed. Xuetong's speed was extremely fast and his star shuttle's grade was not low. After about 2 hours, the pair returned to Shintu's palace, and Xuetong took his leave. Xianxia walked into the palace alone and was quickly met by Jialong, who smiled and asked, "Did little brother manage to purchase everything he wanted to?" Water Moonstar cities are rich in commodities. I was very satisfied." Jialong laughed. "If one can't buy something on Water Moonstar, then there's nowhere in the entire star field they will be able to." He said these words with a fair amount of pride. Is Shin-Tu back yet? Yang Kai asked. No. Jialong shook his head. Little brother doesn't need to worry. Although the president is a bit strict, he is still quite good to young Master Shin. Tuesday summoning him this time was probably just to reprimand him slightly. Before young master left, he asked me to urge little brother to relax here. If little brother has any requests, please don't hesitate to ask. I understand. I have to enter retreat for a while, so don't let people bother me. I'll inform you when I come out. Good. Jialong gently nodded. Yang Kai returned to his residence and closed the door before taking out the star shuttle he had purchased for 12,000 high-rank Saint crystals and holding it in the palm of his hand. He then, because using his Saint Qi and spiritual energy to refine it. Any artifact had to be refined by a cultivator using their own energy before it could be used. Back on Tongxian realm, it had taken Yang Kai a few months to refine his current star shuttle. But at that time his strength was quite low while the star shuttle he had been refining was of a high Saint grade, hence why it had taken so long. Now, however, things were different. Yang Kai had carefully selected this new star shuttle to match with his own Saint Qi, and he himself had reached the second-order Saint realm, so refining it should be much simpler than last time. As soon as he began pushing his Saint Qi, the star shuttle was covered in a layer of demonic flame. The demonic flame was both hot and cold, the two opposite attributes coexisting in perfect harmony. In a flash, Yang Kai felt a subtle connection form between himself and the star shuttle, and he began pouring his divine sense into it, investigating its internal structure while simultaneously leaving his spiritual energy mark on it. Yang Kai temporarily forgot the passage of time and devoted himself fully to refining the star shuttle. The entire process went smoother than Yang Kai had expected as he quickly refined the star shuttle while engraving his soul mark onto it, allowing it to adapt to his strength. Everything proceeded unimpeded. After Yang Kai thoroughly refined the star shuttle, he estimated that it would only take a month of nourishing it before he could use it. Realizing this, Yang Kai felt a sense of satisfaction as he understood this was evidence of his own cultivation and strength having increased greatly. Yang Kai didn't choose to leave his residence but instead stayed in his room while nourishing his new star shuttle with his Saint Qi as he spied on the mysteries of the giant star chart in his knowledge sea. Time passed by and soon it had been an entire month. Since Yang Kai first arrived here, he had spent the vast majority of his time inside the palace. In fact, apart from when he went out to purchase things with Xuetong, he had essentially not stepped out of his room or spoken with anyone. As he sat calmly and pondered various things, Yang Kai suddenly felt an urge to go out and take a look around, see the various sights of Water Moon Star, and experience how this prosperous star differed from Tongxian realm. At the same time, he could also familiarize himself with the performance of his new star shuttle. By deepening his understanding of the various aspects of the star field, Yang Kai would better be able to plan ahead. Right now, he still hadn't come up with an explicit goal. Thinking so, Yang Kai got up and left his room. After looking for Jialong outside, and learning that Shin-Tu was still not back, Yang Kai made plans to go out on his own. Jialong didn't stop him and instead just gave him a Hung Luo Chamber of Commerce token. Explained to him that with it he could use it to enjoy some privileges outside as well as avoid some troubles. Yang Kai put the token in the Demon Mystic Tome before flying off on his star shuttle. He had no specific destination in mind and simply flew wherever the wind took him. This Saint King grade high-rank star shuttle was truly different. It was several times better than his previous one. In terms of speed alone, the two were not comparable. Flying along, Yang Kai would stop from time to time as he gradually explored Water Moon Star. This star was not much different from Tongxian realm actually. There were mountains, lakes, continents, and seas, along with a variety of different races. If Yang Kai had to name a difference, it was that any cultivation star in the star field had far richer world energies reserves than Tongxian realm. As the home star of Hung Luo Chamber of Commerce, this was even more so the case for Water Moon Star. While the world energy density here wasn't as good as the strange floating continent, it still ranked amongst the best cultivation stars in the entire star field. It was because of the lack of world energy that, in Tongxian realm, the Saint realm was the highest peak a cultivator could reach. Since ancient times, only great demon god had broken through this barrier. Unfortunately, before he had time to explore the wonders of the star field, He had fallen in defense of the world, becoming nothing more than a legend. Their weak cultivations and the lack of resources made it impossible for cultivators from Tongxian realm to venture out into the starry sky and join the interstellar community. They could only be trapped in their small world, never able to experience the wonders of the star field. However, this also spared the inhabitants of Tongxian realm from the fate of being enslaved. The overall strength of the cultivators on Tongxian realm was not enough for them to carve out a place for themselves in the star field. If they had integrated into star field, the only result possible would be subjugation by a more powerful force. Yang Kai's mood was calm as he flew across Water-Moon Star, traversing mountains, deserts, and oceans. Every few hundred kilometers, though, he would come across another city where many souls gathered together. These cities, both big and small, were very prosperous. Only in some extremely remote locations would there be less crowded towns where the people's strength would be lower. Just like in Tongxian realm, each city had a city lord governing it. The strength of these city lords would also vary with the degree of prosperity each city had. Many of the city lord level characters were Saint King realm masters, while in some small places, they would only be saints. This allowed Yang Kai to realize that, in general, there weren't many origin returning realm masters and that they would be the mainstays of each force. The world energy density was also different from location to location. Some places Yang Kai passed by were filled with rich world energy, while in other places the aura was quite thin. The cities on Water-Moon Star all fell under Hung Luo Chamber of Commerce's jurisdiction, and each one of them contributed a portion of its wealth and strength to it. These many grains of sand came together to build the great tower known as Hung Luo Chamber of Commerce. As Yang Kai flew about sightseeing, no one bothered him or came to stir up trouble. Along the way, he heard a lot of interesting things. For example, the avant-garde nature of President AIO, the talent selection the Chamber of Commerce was going to be holding soon, the numerous sons of President AIO. Yang Kai didn't hear anyone talking about Shin Tu though. It seemed that on Water-Moon Star, Shin Tu's identity as an illegitimate child was not known to the public. Given this reality, it wasn't difficult to understand why Lu Guichun didn't know about Shin Tu. Yang Kai spent a month or two wandering across the Water-Moon Star. From his explorations of Cultivation Star, he gained a good understanding of Hung Luo Chamber of Commerce as well as perfectly adapted himself to his new star shuttle, now feeling like it was an extension of himself rather than a tool. Yang Kai even held on to a slight hope in his heart that Su Yen might be somewhere on this Cultivation Star, so he had spared no effort searching it. Unfortunately, it was obvious after some time that Su Yen was not here. With the union of heart and soul between him and Su Yen, as long as they weren't too far apart, they could sense each other's existence. Yang Kai, however, didn't lose hope. He hadn't really expected to find Su Yen so easily. After 2 months of flying, Yang Kai was returning the way he had come, this time not stopping to see the sights instead of flying directly in the direction of Shin Tu's palace. Today, he passed through a certain mountain valley, and with his divine sense spread out, he suddenly noticed a significant number of life auras coming from within it. Yang Kai didn't pay much attention to this though, and in order to avoid any unnecessary troubles, he deliberately changed course slightly to avoid coming too close. During his recent time outside, he had made a point to act prudently and not draw attention to himself. As he flew by, Yang Kai casually glanced over and discovered that in a clearing of the mountain valley, there was actually a small starship with its main hatch wide open and a stream of cultivators moving in and out of it. Next to the starship, there were a lot of crates piled up, and the cultivators seemed to be moving them on board. By now, Yang Kai had acquired some common-sense knowledge about the star field. For example, some materials couldn't be placed into space rings, possibly because they required extremely special storage conditions or they were simply too large or heavy to fit into conventional space rings. When such materials needed to be transported from one star to another, a starship was required. As such, starships were an indispensable part of any great force. Starships were a fast and relatively safe way to deliver goods and people long distances. The starship moored in the mountain valley was about 300 meters long, less than half the size of the ones Yang Kai had encountered before, so he could tell that it was only Saint King grade low rank or mid rank. Next to the starship, There was a particularly eye-catching young man in fine robes who was laughing and chatting with the people next to him. This young man's appearance was very distinct. He had fair skin that appeared supple and delicate. His face was more enchanting than any woman's, and his long hair flowed gently across his shoulders. Beside him, many female cultivators were staring at him obsessively, undisguised looks of infatuation coloring their faces, as if the young man only needed to say a word and they would willing to surrender their bodies and minds to him to use as he pleased. Xianxia couldn't help narrowing his eyes towards this young man slightly. This gaze, however, drew the attention of the young man, who quickly shifted his own eyes to meet Xianxia's across a distance of several thousand meters. Upon seeing Xianxia, the young man's face sank and he quickly whispering a few words to a man next to him. A moment later, a few star shuttles flew off towards Xianxia. Xianxia couldn't help but frown, not knowing why this person was trying to find trouble with him. Not decreasing his speed, Xianxia quickly flew away, a number of azure lights quickly chasing after him. Arriving at a remote location that within the scope of his divine senses exploration there were no living people, Xianxia came to a stop. This was a barren place where even the world energy aura was quite thin. It had seemingly never been settled before. There were many such places like this on Water Moonstar. A total of 3 people were pursuing him, and from the energy fluctuations they gave off, Xianxia could tell that 2 of them were third-order saint while the last was a saint king. The cultivation of this saint king wasn't too high though. Xianxia didn't feel much pressure from him, so he was likely just a first-order saint king. With insight into their cultivations, Xianxia put down all his worries and not only didn't try to escape but intentionally stopped in order to confront his pursuers. Xianxia hadn't fought a saint king since he fused the 2 opposite attribute energies inside his body, and he was quite eager to know if his current strength could match a saint king's. Thinking so, Xianxia took a deep breath and turned around to meet these 3. The 3 men saw Xianxia stop and quickly revealed happy looks, quickly rushing over and surrounding Xianxia between them, each of them staring at him with clear malicious intent. "Friends, why are you chasing me? I don't believe there is any enmity between us," Xianxia asked indifferently. "Naturally, there is no hatred between us." The Saint King Realm Master nodded in agreement. "But you've seen something you should not, little boy. You can only blame your bad luck for passing through here at this time." Xianxia raised his brow and suddenly understood what was happening. The goods that were being loaded onto the starship back in the mountain valley were probably some form of contraband, which was why they had chosen to do this exchange in such a remote location. Yet now, an unrelated person, Xianxia, had inadvertently passed through and seen everything. Judging from the other side's tone and attitude, Xianxia could tell they had no plans to settle things peacefully. "If you have any last words, you can speak them now. If it's convenient, I'll convey them to your loved ones for you," the Saint King Realm Master said lightly as he kept a bad gaze fixed on Xianxia. Just as he spoke, one of the third-order saints standing behind Xianxia took action. A powerful energy bursting from his body and an incredibly swift and sharp wind blade silently condensing in front of him before flying out towards Xianxia, clearly trying to slice him clean in half. The wind blade was extremely fast, and in a flash it was already upon Xianxia. The face of this cultivator was filled with a disdainful smile, as if he could already see the scene of Xianxia being cut down. With his third-order Saint Realm cultivation, how could his sneak attack on a young second-order saint possibly fail? The wind blade cut through the body of the unmoving young man in the next instant. However, no blood flew out and the figure of the young man slowly faded, disappearing right before everyone's eyes. The eyes of the man who had launched the wind blade shrank and his instincts cried out in alarm, causing him to instinctually retreat. "Watch out!" A flurried shout came from the Saint King Realm cultivator whose eyes had gone wide with shock, as if he had just witnessed something inconceivable. Each of these people's reactions was fast. After all, anyone who could cultivate to the third-order Saint Realm had rich combat experience and had faced countless life or death battles. Hearing this reminder, the backtracking cultivator rapidly changed direction and leapt out. Immediately, though, this man saw looks of horror on his 2 companions' faces, both of them looking like they had swallowed their tongues in shock. At that moment, above his head, the man felt a potent energy fluctuation that seemed both burning hot and frigid cold, impossible to defend against. Looking up, he saw a giant palm print flying towards himself. This palm print seemed able to obscure the heavens and quickly became the only thing his eyes could see, as if it had swallowed both his mind and body whole. This palm was composed of a strange black flame that the man had never even heard of before. Heaven-covering hand. The man wanted to escape, but there was nowhere for him to flee, the massive palm print seemingly having sealed off all his paths of retreat. Honk! A muffled bang rang out and the cultivator was swallowed by the palm print, a violent force sweeping across his body causing him to send out a pitiful scream. After being struck, the man crashed down to the ground like a meteor, his bones all broken and his flesh severely damaged. Clusters of demonic flame continued burning him, and no matter how he tried to use his own Saint Chi to extinguish them, he was unable to. With his opening strike succeeding, Yang Kai didn't pause for an instant, summoning a heaven-punishing spear into his hand and throwing it out towards the other third-order saint while his enemies were still in a state of confusion. Sensing danger approaching, the man hurriedly tried to resist, condensing his Saint Chi to protect himself while summoning out a Saint-grade high-rank shield-like artifact to block Yang Kai's spear. This shield artifact had blocked many near-fatal strikes for this third-order saint, and he regarded it as his strongest defense. Having summoned his shield, the man regained his composure and was just about to fight back when a crisp sound rang out in front of him. Looking down, the man was terrified to see that his prided defensive-type artifact had actually been pierced through by the demonic flame spear, its spirituality completely lost and its light growing dim. The man couldn't help crying out in fear. Shio, shio, shio. 3 more heaven-punishing spears flew over, the first 2 completely shattering the shield artifact while the third pierced into its target's body, breaking through the third-order saint's powerful body and Saint Chi protection as if they were paper. Vitality quickly disappeared from the man's body and the light in his eyes faded as he plummeted headfirst towards the ground. In the blink of an eye, of the 3 people who had surrounded Yang Kai, one was dead and another was dying. The dead man had not even hit the ground before his body was burnt to ash, and even his soul which had tried to escape failed to escape the wrath of the demonic flames, melting like snow under the hot summer sun and quickly disappearing. The wounded man down on the ground was still being engulfed by the demonic flames and his shouts were rapidly growing weaker. The only one of the 3 left, the first-order Saint King, was now staring towards Yang Kai with a dignified look upon his face. He couldn't fathom how this young man, who seemed to only be a second-order saint, was able to instantly kill 2 cultivators who were a minor realm above him. What's more, this youth managed to accomplish this without even breaking a sweat, like he was casually pinching 2 ants. At this moment, the young man in front of him also wore a stunned look, as if even he was surprised by his own accomplishment. A violent and bloodthirsty aura quietly swelled up from Yang Kai's body, causing his momentum to climb to a new height. Seeing the pair of indifferent eyes glaring towards him, the Saint King Realm Master couldn't help shivering slightly, as if in front of him was not a second-order Saint Realm boy, but a master who stood at a much greater height than his own. Before they had even begun to fight, he wanted to retreat. He didn't know if he could beat this strange youth. Profound heavenly sword. Yang Kai suddenly shouted, and a sword made from demonic flames appeared in his hand. In a flash, the sword chopped down towards the last man's head. The Saint King Master finally came to his senses and let out a fierce roar, a wave of energy bursting forth from his knowledge sea. The fluctuations of this spiritual energy pulse were quite strange, and as soon as they reached some kind of critical point, a great behemoth emerged from between the man's forehead. This colossus was a full 20 meters in length and was covered in a hard shell. It was a monster beast famous throughout the entire star field, the fierce golden-armored poisonous scorpion. As soon as this golden-armored poisonous scorpion appeared, it emitted a thick green mist that polluted the surrounding dozen kilometers while its 2 powerful pincers clamped repeatedly, seemingly capable of cutting through the strongest metal or jade. The demonic flame sword landed squarely on the hard shell of the golden-armored poisonous scorpion, but didn't cause it any harm, only leaving behind a shallow scratch while the demonic flames themselves were actually swallowed up by the poisonous mist and soon extinguished. Seeing that his golden-armored poisonous scorpion was capable of withstanding the strange demonic flame, The Saint King Realm Cultivator laughed and taunted. Little brat, your courage isn't small. On Water Moon Star you actually dared to kill my Chamber of Commerce's people. You cannot escape death now. You're from Hung Luo Chamber of Commerce? Yang Kai's eyes narrowed. Enough nonsense. Surrender your life. This person was not willing to say anything more with Yang Kai and immediately made the golden-armored poisonous scorpion rush toward Yang Kai. Its pincers stretch out threateningly as a green glow appeared on its barbed tail. This poisonous scorpion was frightening and its poison was incredibly potent. Anyone stained with it would die without a doubt. What cultivators feared about it most though was that its poison not only affects one's body but their soul as well. So any place where golden-armored poisonous scorpions appeared was considered a restricted area and only some very powerful cultivators would attempt to hunt them. This Saint King Master had apparently killed a golden-armored poisonous scorpion before and refined its remnant soul into a weapon he could control. Fighting with Yang Kai, he had no choice but to summon it out. This golden-armored poisonous scorpion was actually nothing more than a soul avatar. But it still possessed all of its abilities from before it died, and although it didn't have a physical body, the spiritual energy it was composed of was sturdy enough to withstand a great deal of punishment. Yang Kai's profound heavenly sword was unable to damage it. Seeing the golden-armored poisonous scorpion rushing toward him like a bolt of lightning, its great maw open wide as if it was trying to swallow him whole, Yang Kai gathered the full power of his soul and sent out a great burst of spiritual energy towards it. Noticing this, the Saint King Realm Cultivator was startled but didn't draw back and instead wore a disdainful grin. The young man in front of him was clearly not aware of the golden-armored poisonous scorpion's traits. Seeing that it was a soul avatar, this youth clearly wanted to use his own spiritual energy to fight back. But he didn't know that the scorpion's poison could corrode souls as well. The Saint King could already picture what result Yang Kai would achieve. The invisible forces collided together, and the huge figure of the golden-armored poisonous scorpion came to a halt as it swung its pincers about violently and whipped its barbed tail forward, the green glow from its tip piercing towards Yang Kai's divine sense. Yang Kai's face sank as he felt his consciousness becoming sluggish. He immediately understood that this poisonous scorpion was not as simple as he had imagined. Without hesitation, Yang Kai unleashed the full might of his conflagrated knowledge sea. The air suddenly became hot, and the space around the golden-armored poisonous scorpion began to warp. The Saint King Master, who had been sitting back and watching as if he was just a spectator to the show, suddenly felt the change in Yang Kai's spiritual energy and paled, hurriedly trying to withdraw his golden-armored poisonous scorpion in the next instant. But before he could succeed, the poisonous scorpion suddenly trembled as if it was suffering unbearable torment. Its hard golden shell cracked in multiple places, and the burning hot conflagrated spiritual energy rushed in through the gaps, roasting it from the inside out. The golden-armored poisonous scorpion went up in flames and in a flash. The beast which Yang Kai's profound heavenly sword couldn't even scratch was burnt to ashes. Impossible! The Saint King Realm Cultivator let out a roar of disbelief as he stared at the spot where his precious poisonous scorpion had disappeared, his face filled with panic. Even a third-order Saint King Master wouldn't have been able to deal with his golden-armored poisonous scorpion so quickly. That was a feat only an origin-returning Realm Master could achieve. This man suddenly glared over towards Yang Kai, his face flushed red and a violent aura surging from his body. The golden-armored poisonous scorpion was his trump card, one he had painstakingly refined using his own soul over many years. Every time he used it, he was able to win handily, and had even used it to turn danger into safety more than once. All that time and effort he had invested had just been destroyed right before his eyes, sending him into a rage. Now, all he wanted to do was kill the young man in front of him to soothe the hatred in his heart. "Boy, I want you to die," he roared madly, pushing his spiritual energy once more and summoning out more monster beast soul avatars one after another, each of them hovering midair while glaring towards Yang Kai. The Saint King Master stood in the middle of these soul avatars, like the king of beasts, his anger still boiling over. With a single thought, the man sent all the monster beast soul avatars rushing forward towards Yang Kai while he himself hid amongst them, looking for an opportunity to launch a killing strike. Chi chi chi. Yang Kai's conflagrated spiritual energy burst out once more, his divine sense launching one blazing hot attack after another, causing these beasts to shriek in pain as they were burnt down in rapid succession. Under the camouflage of a burning beast, the Saint King Realm Master swiftly approached Yang Kai, and a strange power burst from his body, forming an invisible vortex that pulled Yang Kai towards it. Sneering deeply, a dazzling ray of light shone from his palm, and a powerful burst of energy shot forth, seemingly tearing through space as it moved to swallow up Yang Kai. Yang Kai instantly covered his body in demonic flames, turning himself into a human fireball while sending his strength into the vortex at his feet in an attempt to destroy it and free himself. The next moment, he felt a shroud of light engulf him. Yang Kai's face changed as he felt this wave of light wash over him and finally understood the gap between the Saint King Realm and Saint Realm. With his current strength, he could easily kill Third-Order Saints, but he was actually unable to quickly handle a Saint King. Even facing a First-Order Saint King was a bit dangerous for him. Cultivators who had reached this level had a far deeper understanding of their own strength as well as how to utilize it than Yang Kai currently did. Demon God Transformation. Yang Kai roared in his heart. Black demon crests appeared on his skin before swiftly disappearing into his physique, causing his vitality, life aura, and physical strength to rise dramatically. Xiao xiao xiao. As the beam of light crashed against him, Yang Kai was hit hard. His body tossed around like a rag, knocking the wind out of his lungs. The Saint King Realm Cultivator saw this and sneered before rushing out towards Yang Kai, intending to deliver the final blow. He suddenly discovered that this strange young man was actually not as strong as he had imagined, and his absolute confidence in his own strength returned. A double palm strike slammed into Yang Kai's body, and the Saint King Master poured his own Saint Chi into him, attempting to destroy his vitality. At that moment, though, he saw a teasing look on Yang Kai's indifferent face. Although he seemed to have suffered heavy injuries, and blood was flowing out the corner of his mouth, this young man didn't seem to care. Sending out a flurry of punches, the two men immediately fell into a violent hand-to-hand exchange. Fresh blood splashed out as Yang Kai's skin was cut open, but the Saint King Master was not faring any better. His body was also quickly covered with blood, turning him into a miserable state. This was not Yang Kai's first time fighting someone above his own realm, but it was his first battle against a Saint King Master. In this difficult situation, Yang Kai was inspired by the potential of his own abilities and was able to rapidly comprehend many mysteries about his own strength that had previously eluded him. The longer that passed, the fiercer Yang Kai fought, a tinge of madness appearing in the depths of his eyes, his strength not decreasing at all as a result of his injuries and instead rapidly growing stronger. Conversely, the Saint King Realm Master's anger and momentum quickly began to fade. He was feeling that if he continued this fight, perhaps he would be the one to die. He was heavily wounded now, and countless meridians inside his body had been damaged while many of his bones were cracked. Clusters of demonic flame burnt his body, almost turning him into a ball of flame, forcing him to circulate his own strength to resist the damage they were causing him. But in the face of the simultaneously hot and cold auras, he was finding it difficult to resist, and he once again felt the urge to flee. As the battle continued, the Saint King Realm Master pushed himself to his limit, using all his best martial skills and artifacts. Yet he was still unable to defeat, much less kill, Yang Kai. Over the course of the battle, Yang Kai not only didn't retreat, but instead became even more aggressive, his eyes filling with radiance as a joyful look appeared on his face. He was enjoying himself, fighting an evenly matched opponent, going all out to kill one another, knowing only one of them would be able to emerge victoriously. This rush made Yang Kai truly feel alive. Seeing this crazed expression on his opponent's face, the Saint King Realm Master couldn't help shivering slightly. By now, he had comprehended Yang Kai's real intentions here. This young man was actually using this battle to explore the depths of his own strength. The two Third-Order Saints he had killed before were just something he had done because it was convenient. Realizing this Saint King Master finally panicked and his courage gave out, his instincts screaming at him to escape from this insane and terrifying youth. Hong hong hong. As their strengths collided with one another in a series of explosions, Xianxia and the First Order Saint Kings separated from each other, breaking away from the range of each other's strikes, gasping for breath as they stared at one another across a 100-meter gap. The sound of joints cracking came from Xianxia's body as he flexed his physique, his Saint Chi welling up as a half-full look appeared on his face. Opposite him, the Saint King Realm Cultivator wore a bleak look as he struggled to support his bloody and exhausted body. He couldn't help staring at Xianxia in horror as he saw the minor wounds on his body recover at a rate visible to the naked eye. At the same time, he noted that the blood covering this youth was actually giving off a dazzling golden glow. He actually possessed golden blood. The eyes of this cultivator stared dumbfounded at this incredible scene. He didn't know what kind of secret art this youth had cultivated to produce blood of this color, but he could tell that the abnormal vitality and resilience of his body stemmed from this golden blood. It was thanks to this golden blood that this youth's wounds healed so quickly. The Saint King Master quickly realized he was not this young man's opponent, as he simply didn't possess such astonishing recovery ability. If they continued to fight, he would definitely die. He actually still had a trump card he could play, a forbidden technique that would instantly raise his combat power significantly, allowing him to continue the fight. But he didn't dare to use it, because once he used this forbidden technique, his condition would rapidly deteriorate, and even his current realm might fall, damaging his foundation and preventing him from ever advancing again. He was already half dead from this battle. If he really used his forbidden technique, even if he won, the cost would be too high. The most important factor, though, was that even if he used this forbidden technique, he wasn't confident he could triumph. Just who was this boy? When did such a fearful character appear? He was thoroughly confused and shocked by the power Xianxia displayed. Therefore, while continuing to stare at Xianxia, he began withdrawing, his face filled with vigilance as he worried about this youth refusing to compromise. Only after he retreated to what he considered a safe distance did he summon his star shuttle and shout out to Xianxia, "Little brat, you'll pay for your actions today. There will be no place on Water Moon Star where you can take shelter." His voice came from far away as his figure disappeared across the horizon. Xianxia's face remained indifferent, seemingly having no intention to pursue, just standing in the same place while staring at this fading back. However, while he remained still, a thread of his divine sense broke through the fetters of space and leapt forward and latched onto the fleeing Saint King. Immediately after, Xianxia stretched out his hand and tore the space in front of him. A couple 100 kilometers away, the Saint King Realm Master, who was still escaping, was working hard to extinguish the remaining clusters of demonic flame covering him. While he was fighting Xianxia, dealing with these demonic flames had forced him to consume a lot of his Saint Chi. If not, he wouldn't have ended up in such a miserable state. This demonic flame was something he had never even heard of before, much less experienced. Hot and cold coexisting, yin and yang mutually promoting one another. It was a combination filled with contradictions, and he was unable to extinguish it easily, forcing him to continue consuming his own Saint Chi to resist it while he pushed his speed to its limits, hoping to return to the mountain valley as soon as possible and ask his seniors for assistance. There was no trace of the strange young man behind him, fortunately, so he felt that he had made a clean getaway and began racking his brain to come up with an excuse to explain his defeat. Just as he was contemplating this issue, though, the space in front of him suddenly twisted, causing him to think his exhaustion was bad to the point where he was seeing things. However, as he stared at it, this distortion in space only grew bigger, and soon, the space in front of him shattered like a broken mirror, and in the next moment, a giant crack appeared before him, like the great maw of an invisible beast. From inside the crack, a figure emerged with a playful grin upon its face, seemingly having anticipated his arrival. Seeing the face of this person, the man's expression paled as if he had seen a ghost. He was unable to believe his eyes. It was actually the young man he had just been fighting with. This youth reached out and grabbed him while he was still in a daze, and before the Saint King Master could respond, he was tossed into the void. Immediately after, the crack in space rapidly began to close as the young man stood outside and waved to him. As the profound darkness engulfed him, The Saint King Realm Master instantly felt like he had been sunk into a frigid swamp as the turbulent forces around him dragged him under. He roared and struggled frantically but was unable to escape and could only accept his fate. Outside, Xianxia dismissed his demon god transformation and after letting out a long breath, his expression becoming dignified. After such an intense battle, he had come to understand where his current limits stood. He could battle against a First-Order Saint King, and after using his demon god transformation, he did not need to fear such an opponent. He wasn't clear, however, how he would fare against a Second-Order Saint King. This fight had yielded other harvest as well, allowing Xianxia to familiarize himself with his new power. He now fully comprehended how terrifying his demonic flame was. However, what he was currently most concerned about was why these three people had chased him down in the first place. What exactly was it that he saw that he wasn't supposed to? It seemed like this group was simply transporting supplies, although their choice of location to complete this transaction was somewhat remote. Xianxia didn't understand and couldn't be bothered thinking deeply about it. So he simply summoned his star shuttle and quickly flew off. Half a day later, inside the remote mountain valley that Xianxia had passed by before, all the materials had been loaded onto the starship, and a middle-aged man who had been talking and laughing with the handsome young man said with a smile, "Young Master Xueyu, it's been a pleasure doing business with you. If there is another good opportunity like this in the future, I hope young Master Xueyu can remember us. We will pay you a satisfactory price." The young man called Xueyu smiled and nodded, his face as refreshing as a spring breeze, causing the people around him to involuntarily feel a sense of warmth and kindness from it. Wherever his eyes drifted, the female cultivators, regardless of their age or strength, would all show intoxicated looks as they stared towards him. There was no doubt that as long as this young Master Xueyu beckoned to them, these women would willingly throw themselves on him. "We'll take our leave then. Farewell, young Master Xueyu," the middle-aged man said with a smile before waving to his subordinates and walking towards the starship, many of them women who belonged to his crew wearing reluctant expression, all of them repeatedly glancing back towards Xueyu. At that moment, a Saint King Realm cultivator hurried over to Xueyu's side and whispered something into his ear in a dignified voice. Xueyu's smile instantly went stiff as he whispered back, "Are you certain?" "Positive. Their two bodies were found 500 kilometers away, and there is no sign of the other. It's more than likely he too suffered disaster. Young Master, I'm afraid this time's transaction has been fully seen by that bystander." Xueyu's pair of crystal-clear eyes flashed a sharp light before he nodded. "I understand." Saying so, he took a step forward and shouted, "Wait a moment." The happily satisfied middle-aged man who was preparing to return home came to an abrupt halt and turned to face Xueyu, asking in confusion, "What instructions does young Master Xueyu have?" Xueyu continued smiling lightly as he said, "Although I'm very sorry about having to do this now, this transaction must be cancelled. And you can't carry off these materials." "Cancelled?" The middle-aged man frowned, a slightly disgruntled look flashing across his face briefly before he forced out a grin and asked, "Young Master Xueyu, surely you must be joking. Money and goods have been exchanged and this transaction is already completed. Yet now you say it must be cancelled." Xueyu smiled and nodded as if it was only natural and declared, "If I say it's cancelled, it's cancelled." This young man's blatant arrogance, not putting anyone in his eyes, irked the middle-aged man greatly and he couldn't help but laugh. "You'll have to excuse me, young Master Xueyu. Since the transaction has been completed, I am not ready to return the merchandise. These things are constantly in short supply, so their value cannot be measured by mere money. And you take care. I hope we'll have an opportunity to cooperate again next time." "There will be no next time." Xueyu slowly shook his head. His smile was not fading at all, still causing everyone present to feel the refreshing atmosphere and involuntarily lower their guard. "These goods must remain and you as well." When this sentence came out, the middle-aged man's expression changed greatly and a foreboding sense of fear suddenly shrouded his whole body. The cultivator concealing his appearance in a large robe standing behind Xueyu suddenly flickered and appeared in front of the middle-aged man, raising his hand and gently patting the top of his head. A strange force flooded into the middle-aged man, and in an instant, all his bones shattered, along with his 5 viscera and 6 organs, his vitality quickly disappearing from his body. Origin returning realm. Staring at the robed man standing in front of him, the middle-aged man called out in despair as the light faded from his eyes. His death caused a huge panic, and the starship and surrounding area were immediately plunged into a sea of screams. The man hiding his figure slowly walked into the starship, killing every cultivator he came across as easily as if he was stepping on a group of ants. A short time later, he calmly walked out and reported to Shueyu, 135 people, all dead. Shueyu nodded lightly, waving to his subordinate and shouting, "Gather up the materials and take them all away." "Young master, what about this starship?" One of his subordinates asked. The materials could be carried off, but this starship was obviously too big to fit inside a space ring, and it remaining behind would definitely attract unwanted attention. Toss it somewhere into second brother's territory. His subordinates haven't been very peaceful as of late. They seem to have gotten into a fight with a group of outsiders. Shueyu faintly ordered. Yes, the group of subordinates responded before getting to work. Yang Kai soon returned to Shintu's palace. Several guards who were silently protecting the entrance greeted him respectfully as he arrived. "Did you come back, Brother Yang?" Shintu's voice suddenly sounded from the inside, and he soon walked out with a big smile and welcomed him. "Did President Aio finally set you free?" Yang Kai looked at him with a smile. Shintu's mouth couldn't help twitching slightly as a look of annoyance appeared on his face. "Don't mention this. This time I almost lost a layer of skin, and come inside, we can talk more there." Enthusiastically receiving him, Shintu walked side by side with Yang Kai, asking about where he had gone during this time and how come he had not seen him for so long. Yang Kai gave him a simple summary of his trip before suddenly frowning. "There's an incident I have to tell you about." "What incident?" Shintu saw his expression become dignified and also put on a serious look. Yang Kai first glanced around cautiously. Jialong, who had been following Shintu, quickly said, "Little brother may rest assured. There is no need to worry about what you say here leaking out. Everyone within the palace is completely loyal to the young master." Shintu nodded, indicating that Yang Kai could speak without reservation. Nodding, Yang Kai continued, "While I was out, I was forced to kill 3 cultivators from your Chamber of Commerce." "And?" Shintu asked. "That's all. After I killed them, I returned here." Shintu grinned. "Then there's no problem. The Chamber of Commerce has so many people, and there are always some battles on Watermoon Star. Every day many people die. If you've killed them, then so be it. As long as they didn't have some kind of extraordinary status, there won't be any problems. Their status shouldn't be very high because their strength wasn't. Then relax. I'll handle this for you. Brother Yang doesn't need to concern himself about it any further." Shintu thumped his chest confidently, not showing any concern about the 3 dead cultivators from the Chambers of Commerce. "You should let me finish explaining first." Yang Kai waved his hand. "I didn't intentionally provoke this incident. I was only passing by a remote mountain valley when I came across a group of people. After I spotted them, those 3 chased after me." "A group of people?" Shintu was surprised. In that mountain valley, I saw a parked starship about 300 meters long, as well as some supplies that your Hung Luo Chamber of Commerce's cultivators were loading on board. I was too far away to get a good look at what the materials were though. What I'm not clear about is why, after I discovered them, some youth who looked about our age instructed those 3 people to chase me. They were trading supplies in a remote mountain valley? Shintu's face suddenly changed slightly, suddenly realizing that things weren't as simple as he imagined, hurriedly asking, "Did those people have any distinguishing characteristics?" Yang Kai thought about it for a moment before saying, "If we're talking about characteristics, then the young man who was their leader stood out greatly. He was beautiful and very beautiful." Even as he said these words, Yang Kai's expression contorted somewhat. Using the word beautiful to describe a man made him feel awkward, but he truly couldn't think of a more appropriate word to use. Listening to him, Shintu's face grew uglier and uglier. He and Jialong exchanged a glance as both of them had a bad premonition. "Brother Yang, Can you describe that young man in more detail? His voice stuttered. I didn't see his face clearly and only caught a glimpse of him, but I could tell that his skin was very pale and that there was a refreshing smile lingering on his face. And, there were also quite a few female cultivators around him, all of them having infatuated looks. He looked around our age. His hair was also quite long and hung down past his shoulders. Xianxia thought about it and relayed what he could remember. It can't be. Shintu suddenly let out a groan. Xianxia didn't miss the distressed looks on Shintu and Jialong's face and couldn't help but ask, Do you know him? Shintu's mouth twitched, and deep within his eyes, a look of fright and alarm was apparent. He remained silent for a while but eventually said, Brother Yang, you're not an outsider, so I won't lie to you. That guy you saw was probably my third brother Xueyu. When the name Xueyu left Shintu's mouth, Jialong's brow couldn't help jumping slightly, as if he sensed danger from just this alone. Your third brother? Xianxia was startled. My third brother. Shintu nodded heavily. Jialong smiled bitterly and explained, On Water Moonstar, young Master Shintu only fears two people. One is the president and the other is young Master Xueyu. Xianxia was stunned but soon grinned. Why would you fear your own brother? Shintu immediately began to complain. If he wasn't my brother, I would have already done everything within my power to eliminate him. Brother Yang, you don't understand. Just mentioning my third brother causes me to shiver in fright. Fuck. That bastard left gave me so many childhood traumas. I can say in all honesty I fear him more than my old man. This young Master Xueyu seems to be quite capable. Xianxia couldn't help but feel interested in that strange youth. He had been together with Shintu for a while and knew that this guy was a fearless rogue. Making Shintu quiver at the very mention of his name, this Xueyu was definitely someone to be reckoned with. Brother Yang, don't make fun of me. If it really was him though, this matter will be troublesome. Why? Xianxia asked curiously. If I didn't guess wrong, third brother must have been engaging trading some scarce commodities with some influence outside the Chamber of Commerce in order to secretly gather money. This is a big taboo and is strictly prohibited. If word of this were to get out, he'd be in big trouble. So when I passed by, he sent people to chase me down? Xianxia suddenly understood everything. Yes. Moreover, my third brother is the type to never relent until he accomplishes his objective. If he ever takes a liking to something, or someone, even if there are thousands of obstacles in his way, he won't rest until he obtains it. On top of that, he tends to act on instinct and no one can ever guess what he is thinking. I remember one year, he and a senior executive of the Chamber of Commerce both settled on a certain maidservant at the same time, and although that executive eventually won possession of that maid, he disappeared inexplicably a month later and was never heard from again. Xianxia's expression sank upon hearing this. Jialong nodded and said, I remember this since, as a result, the president flew into a rage for a while, but because no evidence was ever uncovered, the matter was eventually dropped. Now, I'm afraid he's going all out to find you, Brother Yang, because he must kill you to eliminate any chances of his actions being exposed, Shintu declared. Saying so, Shintu turned a look filled with concern towards Xianxia. Am I supposed to hide then? Xianxia asked, frowning. Hiding may not do you any good. You don't understand how much influence and power my third brother wields. He is the one my father most highly regards, and many people believe the next president will certainly be him. The entire population of Water Moonstar is his eyes and ears. If he wants to find someone, as long as they are still on Water Moonstar, he will definitely find them. Then what should I do? Xianxia smiled bitterly. He had just gone out to have a look around, yet now he had actually gotten caught up in such a serious matter. His luck was really too bad. Brother Yang, don't go out for a while. Just stay inside the palace. I'll help you inquire about this situation and see if there's some way to resolve it. Shintu sighed slightly. Good. After this incident, Xianxia didn't show himself in public again, simply remaining inside Shintu's palace all day long, sitting in meditation, stabilizing his current realm or refining pills and studying the star chart in his knowledge sea to enhance his understanding of the star field. Jialong would pass him some news from time to time. From him, Yang Kai learned that the Chamber of Commerce's third young master Shui really had started a search for someone during this time, causing the entire Water Moon Star to become somewhat turbulent. Many people lost their lives as a result. Yang Kai now thoroughly understood the brutal methods of Shuiyu. At that time, he had passed by far from the mountain valley and had not clearly seen Shuiyu's appearance. So Yang Kai estimated that the other party had also not clearly seen him. Finding a single person you didn't even know the exact face of was undoubtedly more difficult than finding a needle in a haystack. Even if Shuiyu had near-limitless resources at his disposal, it was very difficult to find Yang Kai. As such, all cultivators with similar builds and strength to Yang Kai suffered. Shuiyu would rather kill 1,000 innocents than let him escape. He was bolder and more decisive than his brothers and even President Aio. Yang Kai found it somewhat difficult to imagine that someone like Shuiyu could be so ruthless. When he saw him from afar, all he could feel from him was that he was devilishly attractive and had a unique warmth about him. He was secretly startled and now fully realized one must never judge a person by their face. Shuiyu's innermost murderous intent was completely masked by his appearance. Once Yang Kai fell into his hand, his end would no doubt be miserable. So he obediently hid inside Xintu's palace and peacefully cultivated. The fierce undercurrent lasted for 2 months, and more than 2,000 people on Water Moon Star lost their lives because of it. Only after so much time had passed did things gradually subsided. Jialong also reported this to Yang Kai so that he could finally breathe a little easier. After these 2 months passed, Xintu came to Yang Kai with a resigned look upon his face and openly admitted, "Brother Yang, although I really wish you would remain here and join me in my future endeavors. If you remain there will always be a day when my third brother discovers you. Once he does, even I won't be able to protect you." "You mean, you have to leave?" Xintu sighed. "The situation is a bit calmer now as third brother's attention has shifted to other matters, so I can arrange for you to quietly sneak away." Saying so, he paused and said, "Of course, all of this depends on your own intentions. If you are willing to stay, I will be extremely grateful. My friends are not many and Brother Yang definitely counts as one. That was why I intended to recruit you in the first place. But if you do choose to stay, you can only hide inside the palace temporarily. Then I'll leave." Yang Kai smiled faintly. "In fact, even if this matter hadn't occurred, I wouldn't have remained here indefinitely. Brother Xintu's hospitality has been more than gracious, but I still have my own things to do." Xintu was startled for a moment, but his expression soon relaxed and a smile appeared on his face. "It seems Brother Yang already had some long-term plans. It's a pity. I originally wanted you to participate in the talent selection battle that the Chamber of Commerce will soon hold. With your strength within the Saint grade, you would certainly raise a great storm, but it seems that was not meant to be." Yang Kai smiled slightly. "Then you should make some preparations. I'll see if there is a suitable starship that will soon depart and inform you when the time arrives." "Good." Yang Kai didn't have any opinion. If he wanted to leave Water Moon Star, he had to take a starship. Traveling by star shuttle not only took far too long, but it also consumed his own strength. Yang Kai waited with peace of mind. 10 days later, Xintu suddenly arrived in a hurry and told Yang Kai that everything had been prepared. Yang Kai didn't have any belongings to carry off, so he simply stood up and followed Xintu out of the palace.